Good afternoon. Welcome to this Assembly Revenue Meeting. Madam Secretary, would you please take the roll?
Assemblywoman Anderson.
Present.
Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson.
Here.
Assemblywoman Bilbray Axelrod.
Here.
Assemblywoman Considine.
Present.
Assemblyman Hafen.
Here.
Assemblywoman Kasama.
Here.
Assemblyman Miller.
Here.
Assemblyman O'Neill.
Here.
Assemblyman Ortlicker.
Here.
Assemblyman Roberts.
Here.
Assemblyman Yeager.
Here.
Chair Cohen.
And I am present. Once again, welcome to the Assembly Revenue Committee meeting. Just some housekeeping before we get started. Members and presenters, please silence your electronic devices. Courtesy and respect in our interactions during the meeting is required. Additionally, courtesy and respect when working with staff before and after the meeting is required. Committee members will be using our laptops and possible other screens and devices, not only to participate in the meeting virtually, but to view exhibits. So due to that, you may see members looking at multiple screens or hard copy printouts. Please don't take that as a sign of inattention or disrespect. As a reminder, and as stated on our agenda, we will have public comment, which will occur at the end of the meeting and may be limited in duration. Details on how to participate during public comment are available on Nellis, which you can get to on the legislature's website. Anyone wishing to testify and provide testimony or attend the meeting virtually must pre-register online. Registration opens when an agenda is posted to the Nevada Legislature's website. And upon successful registration, registrants receive a telephone number, meeting ID, and instructions for joining the meeting. As a reminder, and pursuant to rule number 54 of the Assembly Standing Rules, support of a bill or resolution shall be construed as approval of the measure as written or approval of the measure as written along with proposed amendments that have been approved by the sponsor of the measure. Opposition to a bill or resolution shall be construed as not supporting the measure as written or opposing the measure as revised by an amendment that has not been approved by the sponsor of the measure. A neutral position on a bill or resolution is one in which the person testifying offers particular insight on the measure but expresses no position on the measure. As an example, if you love a bill but just need a couple little tweaks or changes that haven't been worked out with the bill sponsor yet, then you must oppose, but please feel free to tell us how much you love the bill in your opposition. So with that, we do have a couple of presentations today, but we are first going to work on our work session. So Mr. Nakamoto, if you'll please go ahead with that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, Michael Nakamoto, Deputy Fiscal Analyst with the Fiscal Analysis Division of the Legislative Council Bureau. The first bill on today's work session is Assembly Bill 66, which was heard in this committee on February 18th and which was sponsored by this committee on behalf of the Governor's Office of Economic Development. Assembly Bill 66 does two main things. It first prohibits the effective date of an abatement or partial abatement under an agreement entered into by the Governor's Office of Economic Development from being later than 1 year after the date on which the application for the abatement is approved. Secondly, the bill also requires the applicant to enter into the agreement within 1 year after the application is received by the office. If the applicant fails to enter into an agreement within 1 year after the application is received, the applicant is required to submit a new application to be eligible to receive approval for the abatement or the partial abatement. There was one amendment that was submitted by the Office of Economic Development. It was on behalf of the office and the Department of Taxation. The provisions of the amendment or the language that was submitted is attached to the work session document. There are two main points to this particular amendment. The first is that if an applicant for abatements makes any eligible purchases that are subject to an abatement after the application is made with the office, but before the application is approved, and sales and use taxes paid on that eligible purchase, the applicant may claim a refund of the taxes paid once an agreement is executed with the office. However, no interest shall be allowed on the approved refunded amount if a refund of the taxes is approved. The second part requires the to issue an exemption letter to the applicant once an abatement agreement is executed with the office, which must be utilized when the business makes eligible purchases that are subject to abatement. If the exemption letter is not utilized when making purchases, the business may apply for a refund of the taxes paid that should have been abated. However, if the business fails to use the certificate and ends up paying the full amount of taxes on 50% or more of the eligible purchases, the business shall be deemed to be non-compliant and will be assessed a penalty of 10% of the tax abatement to offset the burden placed upon the county affected by a refund of the funds that were previously distributed. Madam Chair, that is the end of the work session document for this bill. I would be glad to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nakamoto. And just to be clear, because you cut out for just a slight second there when you were talking about the second portion and the abatement letter, that's coming from the director, correct?
Madam Chair, my understanding is that the exemption letter is issued by the Department of Taxation once the abatement has been approved by the Governor's Office of Economic Development. They forward that information to taxation, and taxation is the one who issues the exemption letter to the business who receives the abatement.
Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate that. And then committee, just so you're aware, we do have Mr. Hum from GOED here. I don't think Director Brown is here, but Mr. Hum is here. Also, we do have Director Young from Taxation in case anyone has any questions for either of them. Do we have any questions? Okay, seeing none, I'll take a motion to amend and do pass.
Also move, Chair O'Neill.
Thank you. I have a motion from Assemblyman O'Neill. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. I think that was from Assemblywoman Kasama.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Do we have any discussion on the motion? Okay. Seeing none, can we please have the roll taken?
Assemblywoman Anderson.
Sorry, can we make sure that we're,
I'm sorry.
that was my fault. I just want to make sure that I'm on the right, following the right bill, because I've only heard the number once, and that was AB 66. So I just want to make sure that I got the right one. Okay, thank you.
And with that, we'll please take the roll.
Assemblywoman Anderson.
No.
Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson.
Yes.
Assemblywoman Bilbray Axelrod.
Yes.
Assemblywoman Considine.
Yes.
Assemblyman Hafen.
Yes.
Assemblywoman Kasama. Assemblywoman Kasama.
Yes. Sorry.
Assemblyman Miller.
Yes.
No.
Assemblyman O'Neill.
Yes.
Assemblyman Ortlicker.
Yes.
Assemblyman Roberts.
Yes.
Assemblyman Yeager.
Yes.
Chair Cohen.
And I'm a yes, so the measure passes with 2 noes. Mr. Nakamoto, can you please go forward with AB 320?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Again, for the record, Michael Nakamoto with the Fiscal Analysis Division. The second and final bill on the work session for this afternoon is Assembly Bill 322, which was heard in this committee on March 25th and was sponsored by Assemblyman Miller. As introduced, the bill provides for the licensure and regulation of portable cannabis vendor events and temporary cannabis events by the Cannabis Compliance Board. Under the bill, a temporary cannabis event is an event at which a participating adult-use cannabis retail store can sell cannabis or cannabis products to persons 21 years of age or older, and the consumption of cannabis or cannabis products by such persons is allowed. A portable cannabis vendor event is defined as an event held by a portable cannabis vendor at which the portable cannabis vendor sells cannabis or cannabis products to persons 21 years of age or older, and the consumption of cannabis or cannabis products by such persons is allowed. The bill also allows for the issuance of licenses for portable cannabis vendors and cannabis event organizers, and it revises provisions that currently prohibit the consumption of cannabis in a public place to permit the consumption of cannabis or cannabis products in an area that has been designated for that activity at a temporary cannabis event or portable cannabis vendor event. When the bill was heard in this committee, there was a mock-up. It's proposed amendment 3139 to Assembly Bill 322, which was submitted by Assemblyman Miller and was discussed at the hearing. This is attached to the work session document. This proposed amendment makes the following changes to the bill. First, it removes references to portable cannabis vendor events. Second, it removes references to a temporary cannabis event license are changed to refer instead to a temporary cannabis event permit. Third, the definition of portable cannabis vendor in Section 4 is amended to specify that the vendor is defined as a business that purchases cannabis or cannabis products from an adult use retail store and sells such cannabis or cannabis products at a temporary cannabis event. The fourth change is there's a new section added requiring the CCB to give priority to a social equity applicant in processing applications for a cannabis event organizer license or portable cannabis vendor license and the issuance of such a license. There's a definition of social equity applicant that is added to mean an applicant that has been adversely affected by previous laws that criminalized activity relating to cannabis. And finally, the board is given discretion to establish reduced fees for cannabis event organizer licenses and portable cannabis vendor licenses for those social equity applicants. Also attached to this work session document is our proposed amendments that would further amend that mock-up that were submitted by the Cannabis Equity and Inclusion Committee as well as Assemblyman Miller. And those are listed on the work session document with the following changes noted. First, in Section 4, which currently contains the definition of the term portable cannabis vendor, the ability of the portable cannabis vendor to purchase cannabis or cannabis products from an adult use retail store is removed. Secondly, in Section 14.5, which has the definition of the term social equity applicant, the words or on the geographic location in which the applicant will operate are deleted. The third change is to sections 15 and 21 of the bill. The prohibitions against an owner, officer, or board member of the proposed cannabis event organizer or the proposed cannabis vendor having been convicted of an excluded felony event are deleted. The fourth change is to section 23. That deletes this section, and that previously required an adult use cannabis retail store to accept returns of unsold products from a temporary cannabis vendor. The fifth change is to section 25 of the bill. This section currently allows a local government having jurisdiction over the location where the temporary cannabis event is held to impose a fee for holding an event. It removes the requirement that the fee be based on the number of persons who are expected to attend the event. The sixth change is in section 42 in proposed subsection 8, which would have exempted the sale of cannabis or cannabis products by an adult use cannabis retail store to a portable cannabis vendor for the purpose of resale from the 10% retail excise tax on these products. That section is deleted. The seventh change, there are additional provisions relating to the prioritization and issuance of cannabis licenses to social equity applicants that are included at the end of this document. The only other thing that I would note with respect to this bill, Madam Chair and members of the committee, that this bill was declared as being eligible for the exemption by the Fiscal Analysis Division on April 2nd of this year, which means that if the bill is moved from this committee and is moved to the floor, in all likelihood, the next stop for it is the Assembly Ways and Means Committee. So with that, I would be glad to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nakamoto. And committee, obviously we have the bill sponsor and the committee in case you have questions. We also have Mr. Klimas from the CCB who's on the Zoom for questions, and of course, Mr. Nakamoto. So do we have any questions? Okay, Assemblyman Miller, is this a question?
I'm sorry. I just need to clarify something on the amendment. I'm not sure that I don't think it was right what was read, and I might have sent the wrong, not the most updated version. May I address that quickly?
Or maybe just for clarity for the committees, we'll roll it. Well, why don't you just tell me what the issue is?
Yes. Oh, it's just, I'm Assemblyman Miller for the record. It's just in section 4. We are not removing the sale from the retailers. So the sale would still have to happen to the portable vendor, would still have to go through a retailer. And so that was something that was, that should have been corrected in the language that was sent to you. And I think I may have sent the wrong one. And that is the only change. I just want to make sure that that's clear.
Okay. So do we have any questions on Assemblyman Miller, on any of this, including Assemblyman Miller's change? Please go ahead, Assemblywoman Anderson.
Thank you, and this time I'm a little bit better prepared. Sorry about the last one. Under the new language for number 3, I just want to make sure I'm understanding correctly that if there are not enough individuals who apply to be licensed, actually, you know what? Can you explain that second sentence of the new language for number 3, where it says, in the circumstances that there are not enough qualified social equity applicants, those adult use cannabis establishment licenses shall be held in reserve. Could you explain that a little bit more, please?
Absolutely. Assemblyman C.H. Miller for the record. Actually, we have Aisha Goins on the call to be able to answer that question. Thank you. That's okay with you, Chair.
Sorry, Ms. Goins, I didn't realize you were here. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Cohen. Chair Cohen to Assemblywoman Anderson. What that is saying is if there's a collective of licenses, let's say there's 25 licenses and 15 are going to the social equity applicants, those 15 licenses will stay. So even if someone drops down, it would stay a social equity license so that another social equity applicant can obtain that license. Or if 15 don't apply, those licenses will still be set aside for those applicants.
Great. Thank you so much for that clarification.
Thank you very much.
Do we have any other questions? Assemblywoman Kasama, please.
Sorry, I don't know if you can see the waving or how we're doing this. Thank you. Thank you so much, Assemblyman Miller, for the bill. And one of the questions that came up with this bill was regarding, I think, like the Clean Air Act, and there was a couple other issues. The air might be cleaned, or how that's going to be handled.
Assemblywoman Cohen to Assemblywoman Kasama. Thank you for that question. There are I did not put this specifically in the bill. I allowed this to be redirected to the Cannabis Compliance Board to apply. However, I do want to address that there are filters that can be used with, what do they call them, generators. And so that would be something that I believe that Cannabis Compliance Board would require. But yes, that could filter the air. I did the research because I wanted to make sure that that could happen. But yes, there are filters that some of the licensees are currently using to filter the air.
Thank you so much. I think I'm leaning towards, in favor of this, but I have some issues with this bill. I know there's another bill out there that goes along the same routes, and I think it had some more detail in that, so I could work with that, and perhaps, I don't know if we bring these together, but I'm not quite sure how that will work, but just wanted to let you know I'll probably be no on this, but am in favor of the concept. And so hopefully that will be worked out a little bit more as we go along.
Thank you. And I don't want to speak for the sponsor, but I think he say this is still somewhat a work in progress. And I'm sure he's willing to look at any proposals should the bill pass and move forward. So any other questions, committee? Okay, so with that, I'm looking for a motion to amend and do pass based on the information we've been given by Mr. Nakamoto and what Assemblyman Miller has told us about another amendment.
So, Madam Chair, this is Steve Yeager. I would amend and do pass with the amendment that was included at the time of the hearing, the amendment that was presented today, with the one clarification that in Section 4, the portable cannabis vendor will purchase product from the retailer.
Thank you, Mr. Yeager. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Assemblywoman Considine. And any discussion, Assemblyman Roberts? Let's go Roberts, O'Neill, and then Hafen. Please go ahead, Assemblyman Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I had a discussion with Ms. Goins yesterday. I appreciate her and Assemblyman Miller's work on this bill. I will vote yes today to get it out of committee, but reserve my right. I don't know. I haven't had a good chance to digest the amendment, although, it was a good explanation by Mr. Yakamoto. I don't know how this impacts the other consumption lounge bill that's out there. And so, but I'm voting yes today to get it out of the committee.
Thank you. And as a reminder, committee, you always have the option to change your vote by the time we get to floor. I just ask that you let me know if you're going to do that. With that, Assemblyman O'Neill, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Mr. Roberts stole my statement I was going to make, so I'll just go ditto.
Great. Thank you. Assemblyman Hafen.
Yes, I'll say ditto as well. Most of my concerns have been addressed, it appears, but I would like to see the final language. So I'll just leave it at ditto. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any other discussion? Okay, Assemblyman Yeager.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to thank Assemblyman Miller and Ms. Goins for working on this. For those of you who are on Judiciary, you'll see some similarities with another bill that was referenced, Consumption Lounge Bill, AB 341, which we still haven't processed yet out of committee, but I just wanted to say thanks because these are two different concepts, but they sort of touch on the same issue, and I think it is important to get them aligned in some fashion. And the truth is probably both of them will end up in the Ways and Means Committee if they pass out of these policy committees anyhow. So just want to express that I think it's come a long way from the hearing. And I know this is a tough, difficult issue with a lot of interest from a lot of people. So just wanted to say thanks, and I'm looking forward to voting for it.
Thank you. Okay, seeing no other discussion, can we please have a roll call vote?
Assemblywoman Anderson,
Yes.
Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson.
Yes.
Assemblywoman Bilbray Axelrod.
Yes.
Assemblywoman Considine.
Yes.
Assemblyman Hafen.
Yes.
Assemblywoman Kasama.
No.
Assemblyman Miller.
Yes.
Assemblyman O'Neill.
Yes.
Assemblyman Ortlicker.
Yes.
Assemblyman Roberts.
Yes. Sorry.
Assemblyman Yeager.
Yes.
Chair Cohen.
I am a yes, so that moves forward with 1 no. I will assign that floor statement to Assemblyman Miller. And as for AB 66, I will assign the floor statement to Assemblywoman Anderson. So with that, I will bring our work session to a close, and we will open up our hearing on Assembly Bill 389. Sorry, we're going to go out of, I guess that is in order. So Assembly Bill 389 revises provisions governing the taxation of certain tobacco products. And with that, Assemblyman Ellison, we welcome you to present in the committee, and we'll have you introduce the bill and any speakers you have with you. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, I'm State Assemblyman John Ellison. I represent District 33, which, if anyone's ever been in that area, I know colleagues here on the committee has, but it goes from Jackpot, Nevada on the Idaho border, Wendover, Utah, goes all the way over to the Oregon border, and then all the way down to Lincoln County. So my district's quite large, so we get around a lot and use a lot of gas. So if I may go ahead and start, Madam Chair, Ms. Cohen and committee, I'm here for this bill. I'm happy to present it. I agreed to sponsor this bill when I learned that it could bring back jobs to Nevada, not impact revenue to the state, and not impact taxes consumers pay to the other tobacco products. If I raised the price of cigarettes, my wife would kill me. I don't smoke, but my wife does. This bill, a bill was passed in 2019 session of the SB 81, was unintended consequences that caused several businesses to close or relocate out of the state and killed over 100 good paying jobs, primarily in Las Vegas. And if I may, Madam Chair, I've already had one colleague call and ask if this bill's passed, if he could go ahead and start the process. I said, this depends on if this bill passes. So there is people looking out there right now to reopen their businesses. AB 389 fixes one issue, and that could help bring back those jobs back. They are manufacturers and distributor jobs. The kind of jobs we need to continue to grow and help the diversity of our economy. I'm joined with Randy Thompson and Brian Bedderia of the Nevada Vaping Association, who will walk us through this bill. So if I may, Madam Chair, I'd like to introduce Randy Thompson.
Please go ahead. Before I just get into that, I just want you to address, there is a fiscal on the bill. So are you saying the amendment takes care of that?
Yeah. Yes, Madam Chair, and I'm sure they can go through this thing pretty clear. Actually, by the time they're done, there's a no revenue. It's a match, because the way the taxes go out, and they'll be able to explain this a lot better than I can, and it's not collected. They might be able to identify this a lot better than I can.
Okay, thank you. And then just so you're aware, committee, again, we do have taxation on the Zoom, so we'll just have them clarify that later on in the hearing, and we'll go ahead and let the presenters move.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chair. For the record, I'm Randy Thompson with the Nevada Vaping Association. It's RANDI-THOMPSON. We are bringing this bill and proposed amendment today to fix an issue that occurred following the passage of SB 81 and SB 263 last session, which changed how other tobacco products like e-cigarettes and cigars are taxed at the wholesale level. These bills set up a very confusing structure that was not able to be fully vetted last session. AB 389 will not change the tax rate. It will simply change where the taxable event occurs and ensure that all products sold in Nevada will be captured by the tax. We've been told if this bill passes, manufacturers and distributors will return to Las Vegas and restore many of the 100+ jobs that were lost since passage of SB 81. Some companies will likely expand their operations. These are good-paying manufacturing and distribution jobs that will help diversify Las Vegas's economy. I would like to turn this presentation now over to Mr. Brian Badera, the Executive Director of the Nevada Vaping Association, to explain the bill and the proposed amendment that, yes, does address the fiscal issue.
I am so sorry. I was having such trouble with the presentation up getting to the right button. I'm sorry. Please go ahead, Mr. Badera.
Mr. Badera, this is broadcast. You are on mute.
Myself. I apologize. Can you hear me now? Okay, you can hear me now. Now I just have to figure out how to get the presentation back. I apologize. What did I do? I really do apologize for this. I promise it's not the first time I've used Zoom.
It's okay. It's a long week for all of us. Just assume you're having the same long week as we are.
Yes. No, I suddenly have little boxes with everyone in it, and I can't find the presentation back. Differences. I guess I'm going to do this without the deck, so I apologize. So here we go without the deck. I did include the deck in the committee notes, but one moment. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. So when you think about the Nevada vaping industry, you typically think about the corner vape shop. That's not what this bill affects. This bill strictly touches the wholesale and distribution side of the vaping industry, which is primarily related to products that will never be touched in the hands of Nevada consumers. There is one specific company in Nevada that actually manufactures the vast majority of its products for sale in China. So we see made in Nevada products in Chinese convenience stores instead of the opposite, what we're used to seeing. As a result of that, there is hey, my screen share came back. Right. Thank you if someone made that work. As a result of that, we see a direct economic output into the state of Nevada of $85 million, 973 direct jobs, over 28 million in wages, and over 40 million in non-tobacco taxes. So when we talk about that, I'm not including OTP taxes paid. We're talking about commerce tax, we are talking about property tax, we're talking about sales tax paid by these companies. And the average wage in the manufacturing or distribution side of these industries is over $15 an hour, and is continuing to increase as the industry grows within the state. The majority of jobs, the majority of this revenue in the state does not come from retail vape shops. So I'm going to skip over the background slide because I think Assemblyman Ellison and Randy Thompson covered this very well. But basically, SB 81 assessed this tax structure. When that tax structure was created, vapor products were not included as OTP. And a few hours later in the same legislative session, vapor products were then included into these definitions. So our industry was not involved in the discussion of SB 81 or how to set up the structure. It's important to really look at what SB or AB 389 does and what it doesn't do. And we'll get into the technical pieces of the amendment in the bill in 1 second. But I wanted to get this down in plain English before we did that. It only changes when the tax is paid, not It does not change how much is paid or how much tax is on any of the products. And it eases the administration of the tax by the industry, and we believe will also ease the administration of the tax by the state. The things it does not do, and the original draft of the bill did, but we fix in our amendment, it does not change the price of the product or the taxes paid. It does not change the rate or the total taxes paid to Nevada. And while this isn't exactly relevant, we feel like it's very important to say it does not change any miner's ability to access the product or make it easier for miners to get tobacco products. This only eases the ability to buy, sell, and trade and manufacture wholesale tobacco products for sale out of the state. Digging into our proposed amendment to the draft bill, Section 1 should be what takes care of most of the fiscal note, which is it reverts subsection 6 to current law, keeping the definition of a wholesale tobacco dealer the same. It is our understanding that should eliminate the need for all the additional FTEs that are in the fiscal note. Subsection 7 further defines the taxable event to be when the product is sold to a retailer or, in some cases, end consumer. That should eliminate the reduction of revenue into the state. Section 2 of the amendment, subsection 2, clarifies that when the product is sold out of state or not subject to taxation, that's just further clarification of current state law. So it should have no substantial effect. It's just saying in plain English what has been substantially confusing through the regulatory process. And then subsection 3 further clarifies that the taxable event is when the product is sold to a retailer.
Mr. Badera,
Yes.
this is broadcast. Unfortunately, we need you to stop your presentation and restart it again so that the public can see it.
Oh, no. Okay. Broadcast, does that fix the problem?
We are checking. One moment. It is perfect. Please proceed.
All right, I apologize for that. So now digging into what AB 389 does, we made a graphic to help folks understand. Is under the current scheme, the taxable event takes place when the product is first made or imported into the state of Nevada. So, and then the product moves through the Nevada supply chain with the taxes assessed. What we are proposing we do is move the event when the tax is paid to when the product is purchased by a Nevada retailer, allowing the products to move through the wholesale side of the transaction with no tax assessment on it. Why do we need to do that? The number one issue is a double taxation problem. So when a product is made in Nevada under the current structure and then distributed by a Nevada distributor, the taxable event takes place and the availability for a tax credit is eliminated. So when that product is sold out of state, the result is that it is taxed both in Nevada and by the other state. There is no other state we're aware of in the country that taxes products this way, causing this double taxation problem, meaning that made in Nevada products, because of this extra tax, can't compete in California against made in California products, whereas made in California products can easily compete against made in Nevada products in Nevada because California's structure is more friendly to manufacturing than Nevada's. As a result of this, it creates an environment where Nevada companies can't work together. And this is why this bill has no fiscal impact, is that if a made in Nevada product is destined to be sold out of state to an end consumer, to avoid the double taxation, what they end up doing is selling the product to a distributor based in another state. So the made in Nevada product is sold to a California-based distributor. That eliminates the taxable event within the state of Nevada and allows the product to be sold out of state. Effectively, what we've done with the current tax structure is tell made in Nevada companies or Nevada manufacturers, if you sell to Nevada distributors and keep all the distribution jobs related to your product in the state, you're going to have to pay some extra taxes. As a result, nobody does it. And the third and final reason why this is important is that that Nevada retail stores and Nevada consumers often struggle to source the products they need to stay in business. But because distribution taxes are so high on this product, what ends up happening is that distributors keep the absolute minimum amount of products in their warehouse, meaning that hard to sell items, specialty items that don't sell very often, or even high ticket items are rarely stored in Nevada distribution facilities. That means that when a retail store or even an end consumer wants to purchase a specialty item or a high-priced item, they often end up having to go to an out-of-state distributor where those products are being stored tax-free until they're sold into the state of Nevada. So it creates an advantage for an out-of-state distributor selling products to Nevada retail stores versus an in-state distributor selling products to Nevada retail stores. Again, making it difficult for these distributors to create and maintain these good paying jobs in Nevada. And so finally, just to wrap this up, is why we need this bill. The current tax policy incentivizes companies to make products outside of the state, to keep them or store them outside of the state, or to do everything possible to keep the product out of Nevada until that last mile before retail. And you'll hear from some of Nevada Vaping Association's members, but we can directly track that behavior to the loss of over 100 jobs in the state of Nevada. Companies that have moved out of state or even just moved a substantial amount of their operations out of state, even though they still have distribution and factories in Nevada and could turn them back on tomorrow if we fix this problem. And finally, it's important to understand that because of this structure, businesses aren't paying these taxes. What they're doing is routing their products around the state of Nevada before they get to their end consumer and paying the tax just at the last minute. And so what's ending up happening is we're getting the same amount of tax revenue we would if we just allowed the wholesale side of the business to work tax-free. And so with that concludes our presentation. I'd just like to apologize to the committee and to the public for the technical difficulties we've had thus far.
Madam Chair, you're muted.
Boy, it is just one of those days. Thank you for that. Okay, I have a question from Assemblywoman Considine.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the presentation. I do have a few questions to clarify this in my mind. But before I get to that question, the first question is on the slides aren't numbered, but you have a slide where you're saying the average wage in wholesale manufacturing and distribution side of the industry is over $5 per hour. But how was this calculated? And specifically, what I'd like to know is if $15 is the average wage, what's the hourly wage of the lowest wage earner in the industry?
So the wage was calculated by the wage was calculated by going through the total amount of wages for the industry and dividing it by the number of employees that we were aware of. We also did a brief survey of a number of our members to confirm this. I do believe on the distribution side, and I'm just speaking for the members I've spoken to about their wages, I would believe we're in the $13 to $14 an hour wages on the bottom end in the wholesale distribution side. On the retail side, I couldn't speak to that, but it would be whatever the lowest wage you'd find at a big box retail store on the side of retail.
Okay, thank you. If for any reason you get that information, want to send it to the committee, that would be great. But that kind of leads to the next question. If you're comparing to like the other retail type stores, trying to get some clarity on how you're explaining like the issue with this is your suggestions with this bill to fix it. Is that how products, the tax issue is handled with other products where they don't pay a tax for on the wholesale side or in the distribution side or in the warehouse side right now? They only pay it when it's gone to a retailer?
This is similar to the structure we would see with like a sales tax, where that tax is paid by the consumer, not by the retail store. So this is amongst excise tax products within the state of Nevada. This is different for sure. However, compared to, say, sales tax, it's not that dissimilar, with the product being paid closer to the end consumer and not being paid upon first possession.
So currently, right now, most entities that warehouse products are not paying the same tax that right now under the vaping, the OTP system, they are?
Yes. So with the exception of, I believe, alcohol and marijuana, those would be the only two products I would know off the top of my head that have similar floor tax type structures.
Okay. And then just my last question to kind of get this clarified is I was confused why you have the line in here that Nevada is the only state to double tax its local businesses. But am I correct when you're saying double tax the local businesses, you're saying that product made and first arrived in Nevada is taxed once, and then that product is now taxed again in another state. So it's not that there is a double tax that Nevada gets. It is a double tax on the business on the Nevada side and then on the other state.
That is correct. So to use California for an example, the state of California exempts their local manufacturers and distributors completely from taxation if they only do business outside, if they only sell their products to outside of California customers. And that's kind of the typical model around the country. So you end up paying effectively the Nevada tax when you make it, and then you pay the California tax when you sell it into California. Whereas in California, they don't charge them any tax when they make it. And then if they were to sell it into Nevada, they would pay the Nevada tax.
Then, Chair, if I may ask one question, or I can wait until everyone else has questions.
Please go ahead.
Okay, so thank you again, Mr. Badera. This is my last question. So then if products warehoused in Nevada that have not been manufactured here but are warehoused in Nevada, under this, if this bill were to pass, they don't pay the taxes on it. And then if those same products are distributed out of state where the taxes are paid by the other state, then in that situation, where is any Nevada taxes paid?
So no Nevada taxes would be paid in that structure, but that's not dissimilar to the current structure. So if a product is made out of state, warehoused, and then sold, and then brought into Nevada for distribution, and then sold out of state, under the current tax structure, no taxes are paid. What ends up no net taxes are paid. What ends up happening is that distributor pays a tax to the state of Nevada, and then when they ship it out of state, they receive a credit or a refund for those taxes. And so the net taxes on that product currently are zero, and they would be zero under the current the proposed structure as well.
So then under that, under that, I guess I'm confused when then how does that become fiscally neutral?
So because currently all the taxes that are paid by that distributor in the middle, who's out of state product into the state, a tax is paid. Then when they ship it out of state, that tax is refunded by the state of Nevada. So it's a fully the tax paid is fully refundable if it is shipped out of state by that middle distributor. The problem only arises where we're trying to exempt taxation when a product is made by a Nevada company and then sold to a Nevada distributor. That's the only time the tax is not refundable, when it's sold out of state under the current structure.
Thank you. Thank you for your time, and thank you for the questions, Madam Chair.
Do we have any questions for the presenter before I ask Director Young some questions? Okay, sorry, I have blocks coming up on my screen to boot. So no more questions. All right, okay, Director Young, can you please explain to us the way the OTP tax works?
Yes, thank you, Chair Cohen, for the question. Melanie Young, Executive Director for the Nevada Department of Taxation. I will provide some clarifying information here on what's being shared today. And then I have my Deputy Director, Terry Upton, who is the Deputy Director over Compliance. And so the way SB 81 was passed in the 2019 legislative session, it imposed the tax upon when the product is first, I'm going to make sure I say this right, transferred into Nevada. So what I would like to do at this time is turn it over to Terry Upton, who can provide the goals of what SB 81 was to do for the Department of Taxation in Nevada.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. Terry Upton, Deputy Director for the Department of Taxation. When we worked on SB 81, we had 3 goals. And those goals were, one, to make it easier for the wholesalers in Nevada who were selling other tobacco products was to simplify the tax. And this was at their request. The second goal was to capture the product that was escaping taxation, not only in Nevada, but also to assist other states as well. And then goal 3 was to simplify the audit process for not only the department, but also the wholesalers too. The wholesale dealers have thousands of products, and it was difficult for them to figure out what the cost of the product was when they sold it to the retailer months later. So how the tax structure works now is very similar to liquor, Chapter 369. When other tobacco products come into the state,
I'm sorry, Ms. Upton?
Yes.
You're kind of coming in and out a bit. I don't know if there's anything we can do, BPS, if you can make a suggestion, or if you were hearing it the way I was.
Yes, Chair, hi, this is Cindy with BPS. Ms. Upton, your audio is cutting in and out. If you could try maybe toggling with your settings in the microphone. The little caret where the mute button is at.
Yes, I see that.
Yeah, if you could try just messing with it and changing it to same as system, sometimes that fixes it.
My apologies, can you hear me now?
I can.
Does that sound better?
Yes, we can.
Okay, my apologies. So the tax structure in Nevada is very similar to liquor tax, Chapter 369, where a out-of-state supplier will ship the product into Nevada and the taxable event occurs then. Then that wholesaler may either transfer the product to another wholesaler, or they sell it to a retailer, and there is no tax on those transactions. That same wholesaler who brought the product into Nevada and paid the tax, if that wholesaler sends the product out of state, then they can claim a deduction on their tax return. The department worked with the Vaping Association after SB 263 was passed to allow that deduction. We changed our form last November.
So Chair Cohen, this is Melanie Young, Executive Director for the Nevada Department of Taxation. I'd like to add just a little bit more clarifying information on what Ms. Upton was saying. So in regards to SB 81 that was passed last legislative session, the tax was changed from when the tax was sold. So upon the wholesaler who would transfer the product to a retailer, tax was paid at that time. But in SB 81, it moved it back to the time when it was first possessed or received by a wholesaler in the state of Nevada. And so with that, it moved the taxing event from that first event that is being talked about here today. And so what the Department of Taxation did in November of 2020 in working with the Association, the department revised its form, which allowed for the deduction for products that was sold out of Nevada is being referred to here, so that it would not capture the tax at the time and would prevent the refund that Mr. Videro was talking about. So hopefully that clarified your question, and if I could provide any more information, please let me know.
Okay, thank you for that. So going back to SB 263, so would you say that the changes that have been made have helped your department be more efficient?
Yes, thank you. So the issue on the taxation of when the product was sold, it would allow the industry to have an inventory. And so as they were selling out that inventory, that tax would be due when they transferred it from the wholesaler to the retailer in this example. The inventory was constantly changing and created issues when we would go into an audit, and also created issues at the industry tracking that what I would consider a first in, first out inventory process, and determining when the tax was due if products were not selling quickly. So at the request of industry, the department in 2019 brought forward SB 81. And so working with industry partners, we heard that that was a complicated process. So we proposed that change. And it also helped us identify and bring in closer compliance those that were not providing or paying the tax in potentially escaping the taxation. And third, it's simplified the audit process for not only the department, but the industry. And so prior to this, our audit would take quite a bit of time to complete. And then now it is an easier process because it's upon, the taxation is upon invoicing or receipt of that into Nevada.
Thank you for that. Do we have any other questions? I'm sorry, Assemblywoman Anderson.
Thank you, Chair Cohen, and thank you for all this information. I think I'll be asking Ms. Young or Ms. Upton, could you verify that this would be cost neutral? I listened to the answer that Mr. Badera gave to the other assembly member, but could you just kind of walk me through how and verify in fact that it would be cost neutral as well from your analysis, if that has taken place yet?
Thank you for the question, Assemblywoman Anderson, Melanie Young, Executive Director for the Nevada Department of Taxation. So the way we would view this is that upon the bill as it would be effective July 1. And so up until June, the way we would look at this is any product that is in Nevada, the tax would have been paid on it. After that date, that product would not have tax paid until it is sold, which could create what I would consider a revenue impact to the state of Nevada in that tax would be now delayed on the other side of it. So we could have months of reduced revenue into Nevada.
Thank you. So there is an anticipation of that having an impact. And then my second question, what exactly, or what are vaping products currently taxed at when it is here in the state of Nevada? Realize that that's not necessarily new language, but just trying to make sure to do a comparison of what Nevada taxes for the vaping products as opposed to, let's say, California, which I believe is currently taxing their vaping products at 50% or higher. So just trying to figure out what that percentage is at this time, just for a comparison in my mind.
Thank you, Assemblywoman Anderson, for the question. Melanie Young, for the record. Pursuant to SB 263 that was passed out at the 2019 legislative session, the vape tax or the OTP tax is at 30% on wholesale.
Thank you so much, and I will not ask you for other states because I don't think that's really your job. Thank you, Chair Cohen, for that leniency.
Assemblyman Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Appreciate the opportunity to ask a question. And mine goes into, so if we bring manufacturers back into the state, so what kind of taxes do manufacturers pay other than this retail tax that they pay now. But what would they pay? They would contribute to the MBT and some other taxes. So if we brought on more companies, wouldn't that increase taxes there?
So thank you, Melanie Young, Executive Director. For the record, I appreciate the question, Assemblyman Roberts. The industry could likely pay commerce tax if they made more than $4 million into the state of Nevada, because that would be the threshold that commerce tax is imposed, as well as modified business tax. They would pay if their wages are greater than $50,000 per quarter. There's a rate that's imposed on that.
Thank you very much. So in essence, if we lured people back in state, depending on retail or wholesale or whatever, if companies that are manufactured in state aren't really selling to folks in state, we could actually see a revenue increase. But I understand there'll be a gap in between. So thank you very much.
Assemblywoman Considine.
Thank you for the chance to ask another question, Madam Chair. After hearing a little bit more about the tax structure and the presentation saying that this has become an issue because the vaping industry came in after this was changed, my question for the Department of Taxation is, then will this cause issues with the other OTP who asked for this change?
Thank you, Assemblywoman Considine, for the question. Melanie Young, Executive Director. Yes, I mean, you could have one industry who would prefer the taxes to be paid in the way it is currently being paid because it's easier for their record keeping. And again, some would prefer it to be paid on the other side. So there is two parts to that. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Thank you. And then, Director, I just want to make sure I got the double tax issue squared away. So while there's a tax paid in Nevada, then the product goes out of state, then it's taxed there, but Nevada does reimburse for the tax paid.
Thank you, Chair Cohen, for the question. Melanie Young, for the record. The Department of Taxation believes that we've clarified that issue when we revised our form in November of 2020 that allowed for that deduction on the tax return itself that's submitted to the department. So it would prevent having to have that product to be taxed as it transferred out of the state of Nevada into another entity wherever its destination is going, and would prevent the refund on that product. So we did hear from the industry and work with partners in relationship to that and created that information on our tax return.
Okay, thank you. All right. Committee, do we have any further questions for the presenters or for Director Young and Ms. Upton? Okay, seeing none. Let's go to support on the phones, please. Well, yeah, so let's go to support on the phones.
To testify in support of Assembly Bill 389, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. To testify in support of Assembly Bill 389, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Will caller with the last 3 digits, 849, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin now.
Good afternoon, committee. My name is Howard Lennox. Lima Echo November Oscar X-Ray. For the record, I work for a company called Fumari International based out of Reno, Nevada. We wanted to speak up and let you know about our support for AB 389. We agree with the vapor industry that realigning the taxable event to the point of from the point of acquisition to distribution to a retailer and consumer more in line fits with what other departments throughout the country do, and it also makes the ability to do business in Nevada more advantageous. I want to tell you a quick story about a client of ours down in Las Vegas who buys from us as well as other manufacturers. They have had manufacturers offer them free goods, and the buyer has turned the goods down because the taxable event since SB 81 has passed. And the reason that he's done that is because there's no guarantee that those cigars are actually going to sell right away. Now, losing those free goods means nothing to the retailer. They didn't pay for them, but the state lost out on 30% of the wholesale price of what would have been had they purchased them if they were sold, if the OTP was remitted at the time of sale as opposed to the time of acquisition. Also, as probably one of the biggest non-vapor OTP distributor manufacturers in the state of Nevada, I can confirm that the State Department of Taxation has never reached out to anyone who files reports that I'm aware of, most definitely not in the OTP community, prior to SB 81 being passed. That SB 81 has killed jobs that AB 389 will help recreate or bring back to Nevada. And it basically, SB 81 that did not simplify anything. It took a clean and simple process and turned it into a convoluted and time-consuming process. I personally do the tax returns, the OTP tax returns.
I'm sorry, sir, you're at 2 minutes, so if you could please wrap it up.
Okay. I personally do the tax returns for the business, for the OTP, the modified business, and whatnot. And I can tell you that 81 basically made things move slower and we paid less. And AB 389 will basically bring some of that revenue back to the state as well as jobs.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for letting me speak.
Next person in support, please.
Will the caller with the last three digits, 700, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin now.
Good evening, Madam Chair. My name is Brian Wachter, BRYANWACHTER, on behalf of the Retail Association of Nevada. We are in favor of Assembly Bill 389. I believe Assembly Bill 389 fits in with the three goals that you heard from the Department of Taxation regarding 236 and 81 from last session. We also think we need to take a careful look at the balance. No tax should cause a taxpayer to make an economic decision, especially one that costs jobs. In Nevada, we have an unemployment rate, especially in Las Vegas, of 9.3%, and this is a time when we need to be looking to diversify, bring these jobs back. You heard that there's not going to be any change to the revenue that's brought in. It's a simple cash flow change, but we do believe this to be revenue neutral in the sense that the same amount of tax revenue will be collected, but we do believe that there are economic benefits to Nevada in terms of direct and indirect economic support when we bring these 1,000 jobs back to Nevada. We urge your support and appreciate your time.
Thank you. Next person in support.
Will the caller with the last three digits, 166, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You will have 2 minutes and may begin now.
Barry Duncan, BARRYDUNCAN. Dear committee and members, Barry Duncan on behalf of the Nevada Taxpayers Association. We just want to voice our support for the legislation and believe that it creates a better balance within the current tax structure. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Next person in support.
If you have recently joined the meeting and would like to testify in support on Assembly Bill 389, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. One moment, Chair. We have one more caller, but it doesn't appear they're able to unmute themselves.
Okay, I'll ask that caller, if you can hear me, to try to call in again, and we will let you testify even if it's out of order. However, you can also send us your written testimony. So BPS, I'm sorry, you said that's the last person in support?
Yes, ma'am. That was the last caller that raised their hand in support.
Thank you. Okay, let's move on to opposition then.
If you would like to provide testimony in opposition for Assembly Bill 389, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. One moment, Chair.
Go ahead.
Will the caller with the last 3 digits, 892, please slowly state and spell your name for the record? You will have 2 minutes and may begin now.
Good afternoon, Chair Cohen and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Elliot Mallon, ELLIOT. Last name Mallon, MALIN. And I represent the Nevada Petroleum Marketers and Convenience Store Association. And thank you for allowing me to testify today. We are in strong opposition to AB 389. Our members are used to buying a tax-paid product, so they know how much they've paid and can turn around and sell it knowing the tax cost and passing that through to the consumer. This bill would change that so that they would now be the taxpayer. Currently, a convenience store is a licensed retail dealer, and this bill would change that, forcing them to become a wholesale dealer, requiring them to figure out that tax. Then remit it to the Department of Taxation. Our members do not want to be remitting the OTP excise tax payments, so the Department of Taxation has to deal with the extra legwork required due to the changing tax law that had already been changed in the last legislative session, creating an unnecessary burden to our members. Thank you so much for the time today.
Next person in support, please. All right.
Will the caller with the last 3 digits, 888, please slowly state and spell your name for the record? You have 2 minutes and may begin now.
Good evening, Chair Cohen, members of the committee, Peter Kruger, K-R-U-E-G-E-R. This evening speaking on behalf of the Cigar Association of America, and we are in opposition to Assembly Bill 389. As introduced, we believe that this bill turns good tax policy on its head. Good tax policy, which is part of the Nevada Department of Taxation's goals, which include equity, fairness, and certainty, are, we believe, don't meet and measure up those goals within this bill. While we're sympathetic to vape manufacturers and premium cigar retailers for not wanting to pay a tax on inventory before the product sold, we believe that this bill's one-size-fits-all is not good tax policy. The bill will require about 3,100 licensed retail dealers now to become licensed wholesale dealers, and for the first time be required to remit the 30% OTP excise tax to the department, as opposed to purchasing their product as tax already paid. Please note that there is a significant fiscal note on this bill, and we believe that that is correct in the sense that enforcement becomes a major problem. We also believe that under the provisions of 389, enforcement by the department and the Attorney General's office becomes even more complicated and costly. The two agencies currently have the tools that were passed in the 2019 session to end or at least slow down tax avoidance and direct more enforcement efforts towards gray and black market transactions here in Nevada. This remains, those kinds of gray and black market activities remain a major problem, especially in Nevada, which serves as a staging and distribution center for illegal tobacco products being moved to California. Simply put, we think this bill is the wrong bill at the wrong time, and we urge this committee not to pass this bill. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next person in opposition, please.
If you have recently joined the meeting and would like to testify in opposition to Assembly Bill 389, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to testify in opposition to Assembly Bill 389, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Will the caller with the last 3 digits, 990, please slowly state and spell your name for the record? You have 2 minutes and may begin now. Caller, you are unmuted. You may begin. Caller, will you press star 6 to unmute? Caller 990, will you please slowly state and spell your name for the record? Caller 990, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin. Chair, I think we may be having some technical difficulties with this caller. Would you like me to move on?
Please do, and if that caller can hear us, please submit your testimony in writing. Yeah, please go ahead.
All right. Again, if you have just recently joined this meeting and would like to testify in opposition to Assembly Bill 389, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. And Chair, at this moment, the public line is open and working. However, we do not have any more callers in opposition to this bill.
Thank you. Then let's go to neutral, please.
If you would like to testify in a neutral position to Assembly Bill 389, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. And Chair, we do not have any callers in neutral. However, the last caller has raised their hand again. Would you like me to go back to them or?
Yes, please. Let's give them a chance.
All right, one moment. Caller with the last 3 digits, 990, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You may begin now. Press star 6 to unmute your phone. Caller 990, can you hear us? Caller 990, we cannot hear you. Is your phone muted? Chair, I am not sure what is going on, but we are still having complications with this caller being able to answer.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on. So I'd also like to call up the Department of Taxation, Director Young, Ms. Upton, if you have any, I am going to have a question for you, but if you have any testimony neutral you'd like to make, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mel Young, Executive Director for the Nevada Department of Taxation. We're available for questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I want to confirm something. I think you testified to this already, but there was contrary testimony on the phones in support. So I just want to make clear your position on if this will, if we were to pass this bill, what the effect would be on revenue.
Thank you, Melanie Young, Executive Director. Thank you for that question. The Department of Taxation believes that this would create would change the timing when taxes would be due. So, for example, in June, because this bill would be effective of July 1, 2021, that taxes on all the products in inventory would be due at that point in time in June. Then in July, it would be only on when that product is sold. So you would likely not see, or you could see reduced revenues for several months while the inventory is being sold out that already had taxes paid on it. So we would be looking at that this would create a revenue impact to the state in the first fiscal year of 2022.
Okay, thank you. So with that, I will ask Assemblyman Ellison and Ms. Thompson, Mr. Paderia, if you'd like to make a closing remark.
Yes, ma'am. I know that Mr. Kruger should have referred to the amendment that was proposed and apparently was still looking at the bill. But one of the questions I do have, if I'm a manufacturer, this is for maybe that Ms. Young can answer to the body, is if I'm a manufacturer and I have products coming in and I'm going to send it to a distributor, the distributor pay the taxes. Is not correct, and that's where we're getting at. So you'd say there'd be a shortfall based on what they've already paid. So it seemed like to me that there could be a thing that cut it off at a certain time, and then they wouldn't have to be a shortfall in the taxes that had just come up. But I don't know how car dealers do it. They don't pay taxes in the state of Nevada on every car until they're sold. So it seemed like the distributors, we want the distributors here. We want them to build the product, and then as they go to the retailers, then the taxes are paid from the retailers, collected and sent to the state. So you might ask Mrs. Thompson and for closing remarks on her side. And thank you so much for at least spending the time late at night and being here to listen to this bill. Ms. Thompson?
Please go ahead, Ms. Thompson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'll actually refer to Mr. Padilla to see if he has any wrap-up since he is the industry expert.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I only have two quick things that I wanted to point out. One is that the Director Young is right, that the products can be credited back. However, if a Nevada manufacturer then sells the product to a Nevada distributor, the current policy does not allow for those products to be credited. So a product that goes from Nevada manufacturing to Nevada distribution to out-of-state retail ends up being hit with that double tax problem. Whereas if a product that is manufactured in Nevada is then sold to an out-of-state distributor, they receive the credit. And so that causes Nevada distributors to not be able to distribute Nevada products without having this tax assessed that cannot be returned. And that's the core problem we're trying to fix here. And I'd just like to state to the committee and to the director, we're open to other solutions to fix this problem, to allow Nevada manufacturers to sell to a Nevada distributor who's then just selling those products out of state, the same way they could sell to a California distributor. And so whether it's this session or whether it's into the future or whether it's administrative, we as an association are committed to finding a solution that helps these Nevada distribution and manufacturing jobs come back to Nevada and rebuilds the thriving industry. And I'd just like to thank everyone else for their time.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that. And I will, this is a confusing issue. I'll certainly suggest if anyone has any more questions that they follow up with the sponsor. And of course, our staff is always available for answering questions, as I'm sure Ms. Young and her staff are as well. So with that, I will close the hearing on AB 389 and open the hearing on AB 449, which revises provisions governing economic development, and ask the Vice Chair to please go ahead and present when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I appreciate it. I'm closing out anything that might make little noises, so during the presentation, or trying to at least. Thank you so much for the ability to present Assembly Bill 449 today, and thank you for the time for committee members to hear the bill. So we're going to be talking a little bit about the GOED abatement structures and what we have set up over the past decade, how they've been performing, where our strengths are, and there's lots of strengths to talk about, some improvements, and how we think about moving forward. And moving forward is going to be very important. We're obviously in a place right now where we are talking really in a significant way about what it means to grow and to nurture and to develop Nevada's economy. And so just from some of the experience we've seen, I think it's fair to have a conversation about changes that we can make to make sure that we're moving forward in the most robust, most meaningful, most significant, and almost the most surgically appropriate way that we can by making some changes to the statute. So I prepared a binder with some information for folks. I don't know about the other committee members, but for me, it can be hard to tab through multiple screens with multiple pages. So I thought good old-fashioned paper might be easier for us as we have this conversation. So in general, I want to talk about the strengths that we have with the Governor's Office of Economic Development system around abatements and incentives and the way we have to have the conversations on them. So first and foremost, all of our abatement packages, tax abatement packages, are prescriptive by law. They live in statute, and this is a wonderful strength for Nevada. When you go to other places, they don't live in so much sunlight, and so it can be very hard to understand what exact power is being negotiated and what is being talked about. You can see a lot of wheeling and dealing in, and Nevada's strength is we have a prescriptive abatement regime in statute. You can't go outside of it. It's clear and right there for all of us to read in NRS. The second best strength of it is that we have audits to ensure compliance. We have audits at the 2-year mark, and then we have audits again at the 5-year mark. And so those audits done by the Department of Taxation say, okay, this business made an agreement with the Governor's Office of Economic Development. They made an agreement about what they would provide in terms of jobs and capital expenditures in order to receive the tax abatements. And at the 2-year and 5-year mark, there's a look back and audit by the Department of Taxation to say, did this work out the way that it was intended? The third biggest strength of our abatement system is that we have the ability to have the recipient of the abatement pay back the abatement if those audits don't come true. And we're going to walk through what those reports look like in a little bit, but this is a great strength. It just means that if the deal that Nevada negotiated doesn't turn out to be what we thought it was, we're going to ask the taxpayer to repay those abatements and collect them. And state has a phenomenal collection record on that. The next would be the reports and transparency. Obviously, with this binder that I provided to you, the Governor's Office of Economic Development has to report on their abatements yearly. And so everything lives in sunshine and transparency for people who want to follow these kinds of reports. And lastly is the most important is we have a proven track record. When you look at these abatements through a number of different lenses, they have changed growth. And for certain regions, they really have been a game changer in terms of shifting the economic foundation of the community to a much healthier and prosperous ones. And that also presents some new challenges for us, but they're the type of challenges that ultimately in the long run, we can tackle together and handle together. So if we could go to the first report to look at, this is the GOED's 2021 report. So this is one of the strengths I talked about, where from the Governor's Office of Economic Development, since we stood it up in the 2011 session, you have a report every year from the office and the activities that they're doing. If you look through the report, let's go to, say, page 16. So if you look at page 16, what you're going to see is all of the approved tax abatements for fiscal year 2015. You're going to see clearly the date that the abatement was approved. You're going to see the company for which the abatement was approved. You're going to see the type of abatement, the type of industry that it is. The next column you see new/EXP, that's whether it's a new abatement or an expansion abatement, and we'll talk a little bit more about those in a moment. The next one is the county where the abatement is approved, the total capital investment, contract jobs in the first 2 years of operation, average wages, approved, and then you're going to see the approval for the types of abatements they can get. And these are what we call our general abatement packages for general business. So you can see that they can get a 2-year sales and use tax abatement. You can see they can get 4 years of a portion of their modified business tax abated, and then approved for 10 years of a portion of their personal property tax abatement. And then another column where there's also the approved real property abatement. So you can see it all. And then you can even look to see the ones that are highlighted in yellow. That's where the company submitted an application, the process began, but ultimately they withdrew. Because they withdrew, this means that the abatements didn't necessarily come to fruition, or you can look to the audit to see kind of how it ended up. So this is kind of a fun place to play in as for committee members. When you look year by year at what our general abatements are, you can see what exactly is being considered, what is being given to in terms of abatements. The next thing I want to point you to is to the audit section, because this is another great strength of our system. And so if you go to page, it starts on page 41, but let's go to page, let's pick a year. Let's go to page 46. And I can walk you through what these look like. So on page 46, you're going to see the report on the approved tax abatements, and this is coming from fiscal year 2015, the 2-year and the 5-year audit results. So you can see very clearly that in yellow is a company withdrew, so there's not an abatement here. The package was approved, but ultimately there wasn't the follow through, so you're not going to see an abatement there. You also see that the orange highlighted part is that the company was deemed not compliant and billed. So what was offered and what was negotiated didn't come to be at the audit. And then you saw the taxpayer have to repay the taxes that were abated. You can see here that when they look at the audit findings, you can clearly see the effective date of the abatement package, the 2-year audit date. You can see if the audit is pending, and then once it is done being pending and once it's completed, you can see that whether the company was deemed compliant or not compliant. At the very end there, you can see the number of jobs that were projected by the company versus the actual number of jobs that were found at the audit. You can also look at what the projected average wage was versus what the audit found, and what the projected capital expenditures were versus what the audit found. So you have lots of information here about this process. And then as you go forward, you can see that as we get more forward to like the 2019 or 2020 approved abatements, we're still waiting on those audits because we haven't hit those timeframes yet. And so you see a lot of really good information here about what we're doing and what we are approving in terms of abatements. And so we've had the system in place for a decade. We've had a great deal of success, but with success comes some struggles and comes some growth. And primarily there are, for me, from my perspective, two specific areas where I think we could rethink our policy and say, can we shape this better going forward? Still knowing that we want healthy, robust economic development, but that we want to tailor it in a way to better suit the community. So the first one is going to be the discussion on housing. So if you look behind the housing tab, you're going to see a paper article from the Reno Gazette-Journal dated February 18, 2021. So it was released last month. And I'm just going to read a quote from it. It says, "Call it the biggest little drop. Just 1 year after soaring to the number 4 spot in the Millikan Institute's annual Best Performing Cities list last year, the greater Reno metro area fell 14 places down to 18th in 2021. It's a steep drop for a region that has been the darling of economic development watchers ever since it punched above its weight to land the Tesla's first gigafactory. This raises the question why. For many struggling households in the city, the answer comes as no surprise. Even as Reno made the stellar climb up in the list in 2020, there was one weak link in its economic chain that garnered concern for the Millikan Institute, mostly glowing analysis of the city. At the time, it stated that declining housing affordability challenges further economic development. Those concerns came back to bite the biggest little city in this year's rankings, which added a couple of new metrics. One was for broadband. The other is for a familiar issue that has stalked Reno since it kicked off its robust recovery from the Great Depression, housing affordability. So the reason why end quote. So the reason why I have this article here is because there is established now with a prestigious report that is a indicator to all business out there about economic growth, that housing and economic development are going to be talked about in the same sentence. This is the new world in which we live in. It's something that a lot of us have known intuitively. It's something that we've talked about around the edges. But really, with the Millikan Institute's finding, it's telling us now that when we talk about economic development and when we rank a city, when we rank an area on economic development, we're going to be looking at affordable housing. And if you don't have an answer to affordable housing, then you will not look as good as an area in terms of growth. So just establishing that this is the reality in which we live in. And so if we can find a way to address it, it makes sense. We have to be talking about housing at the same time that we talk about economic development. The reason why this article to me was most meaningful coming from Reno is because where we are now with our crunch for housing is most likely where we hope, not where we hope, but where we imagine other parts of the state might be as they more firmly and meaningfully commit to economic development. If economic development is working in the way that GoEd envisions, companies are coming from out of state and relocating here, and more people are following. And at some point, if you don't have an answer for housing, you're going to find yourself in the same situation where Reno is, where it's going to impact your ability to bring more business here. We're in a cycle that's going to beget itself and potentially be a downward spiral. I have the entire Millikan Institute report on best performing cities attached. So if you want to look through as well, another great source of data, you can see what they're looking at. But on page 2 of the report, they clearly state that they are incorporating housing affordability as one of their clear metrics. The next area of challenge is on Medicaid, and that's what you're going to see in the next tab. So this next tab is a report, Nevada Medicaid recipients employed by employers with 50 or more employees. I've given you a copy of the 2021 report. There's also a 2019 report. And what this report tells us as you read through it is it's going to tell you the numbers, exactly how many employees and dependents are on the Medicaid system and who their employers are. Where this document becomes the most relevant, I believe, is when we're looking at companies that have received abatements. Because if you are being brought here through the process and the conversation and the hopes and the goals that the community has for you on economic development and a promise of good jobs, then we want to just make sure that at the end that is what we are getting. And that's part of what our audit process is for. But as I'll be suggesting in this bill here, there's a piece regarding Medicaid that we just aren't capturing, but would make sense to course correct on. So you can look at page 10 is where it starts the information, and this list is in order of the businesses that have the most employees on Medicaid. So you could look at the first company listed there, and you're going to see the company name. You're going to see the form, the 5500 form there. So at the beginning of the report, they explained that the Department of Health and Human Services sends their data and information to DETR to cross-check employment. And then most importantly, at the end, you see the employees on Medicaid, that number and what the cost is. And then you see the dependents on Medicaid, that number and what that cost is. The last column is the total. So you can see for the number one company there, they have they have 7,892 employees and dependents on Medicaid, which is costing the state just over $21 million. And I want to preference this. I want to say that I have combed through the reports of 2021 and 2019. And the good news is there aren't very many companies that receive abatements that actually show up on this report. But there are a handful. And just like most things in this world, we've got a number of companies that are doing right, who are offering insurance plans to their employees and making sure that they're getting that insurance plans. But we have the ability to make a policy decision to say, when the Governor's Office of Economic Development is contemplating abatements, that they ought to look to the company's history of having employees on Medicaid, because that really, really helps us double check and make sure that we are offering tax incentives to the best companies we can with those wages that are going to prevent it from costing money on the back end of it, which is in our Medicaid budgets. The more we spend on Medicaid, every dollar we spend on Medicaid, it's not a dollar we can spend on education. It's not a dollar we can spend in foster care. It's not a dollar that we can spend in our criminal justice system. It just is money that we can't spend at all. And so if we can bring down the cost of our Medicaid and then still have healthy abatement packages, then I believe we have a win-win for everyone. So that being said, let's go ahead and get into the bill. So I'm going to do a walkthrough just by concept, and then the walkthrough so you know in the chapters where the concepts are hitting. Okay, so first and foremost, to address the issues of our growing pains. First would be on housing. So through the general abatement sections, general abatements, aircraft abatements, and data center abatements, I am suggesting that we have a policy that allows a company to rebate back to the state 10% of their awards package annually. So you can get an abatement for up to 10 years. Of that 10 years, 2 of it's going to be property tax, 4 of it's going to be MBT, and then you've got the property for up to 10. So for as long as you have a life of your abatement alive, you're paying a percentage of that abatement to the state's Affordable Housing Trust Fund. The state's Affordable Housing Trust Fund has an established structure within the Department of Business and Industry, whereby conversations about need for affordable housing are discussed. And so it makes the most sense to me to say, let's land some dollars there to show the world, to show everyone who watches these economic indicators forecasting that Nevada has a commitment to not only grow and to grow, but to grow well. So you're going to see this concept sprinkled throughout all of the different sections. The second big piece that you're going to see conceptually through here is regarding the Medicaid piece. And that Medicaid piece is going to ask the Governor's Office of Economic Development to say, before you approve an expansion abatement, you have to look at the company's history and see about their interaction with Medicaid and their number of employees and dependents on Medicaid and what that cost looks like. And does it still make economic sense for the state to move forward with that abatement package? So it seems like reasonable policy to contemplate that factor to make sure that, once again, we're getting really great packages that we can all stand behind. The other concept I have in this bill is the concept of better right-sizing our abatement packages. Right now, the time limits on abatements are static. The sales tax is 2 years in our general abatement packages. The property tax is, modified business tax is 4 years. The property tax is 10 years. And then when you go the same for data centers and aircrafts, although different time limits, they're static. There's just one package that's allowed. But when you look at the type of abatements that we've been approving in that initial GOED report, you can see that there's so much variation among the business and that maybe we can consider better right-sized packages to meet their needs. 10-year property tax abatement might not mean much to someone who's not doing a large capital expenditure build out. They might have a lot more employees. So MBT, the modified business tax, and getting more of a break on modified business tax might make more sense to them and might be that extra help to get them here, and versus just saying you get 4 and you're done. I do not propose to change the sales tax amount. I'm keeping that at 2 years, but at least for modified business tax and property tax, it makes sense to say, can we right size those a little bit better so that we don't necessarily give 10 years of property tax to someone in which that's not as meaningful as maybe a little bit more in modified business tax. This initial language is suggesting that we add the words up to. So right now, as opposed to just 4 years of modified business tax, it would be 1 to 4 years of business tax, modified business tax, depending on what that business needs. And then with property tax, 1 to 10, depending on what that business needs. And so I think that we still have some parameters on the abatements, but I also think it'll give us the opportunity, or it will give the board a little bit more opportunity to right size the projects for the projects that come to us. So those are kind of the big concepts in here. The last big concept is really one that I've hoped a direction that GOED would go in for a long time. And so for the past 10 years, the focus of GOED and all the way that the statutes are written, the way that the 360, 750 general abatement statutes are written, the aircraft statutes and the data center statutes are written, is they have a pretty hefty capital investment component. And for the new businesses, we're really looking for you to relocate here. So we're kind of looking for the big business outside to come in. But we have long had different scattering of bills over the decade to kind of say, let's champion our smaller businesses that are here. Let's find a way organically to grow those mom and pop businesses that we talk about. And we help them grow in a number of different ways. There are federal programs out there through the Small Business Administration that the Governor's Office of Business and Industry are wonderful at helping connecting people to. And Business and Industry does just an amazing job with roundtables and advocacy. Another bill that's in this committee, not in this committee, but in the session that I'm a co-sponsor of, a proud co-sponsor of, is a bill to create the small business advocate within the Lieutenant Governor's office to specifically kind of help navigate regulations and to help those small businesses swim through the process. But what we're missing is statute and a program that would say, how do we think about these abatement investments in a way that might be meaningful for some small business? And I propose in this bill that small business means those who aren't paying the commerce tax. So I define smaller, I define business smaller as in their gross revenue versus the number of employees that they have. And what the bill actually states is that there would be a division within the Governor's Office of Economic Development. Quite frankly, I'm not married to a term. It doesn't have to be like a division, although we have great divisions of one person. I just kind of want one person who would be willing to operate a pilot program to see, for survey what those needs are, and imagine that it might be something like sales tax, and then figure out if there's a number that could be helpful and meaningful and relevant for small business in terms of incentives and abatements that we could build out as we rebuild the economy. So those are the concepts. I'll kind of walk you through the bill now. Right, Section 1, NRS 360-750. This is what we call the general abatement section. So in the report that I showed you, the GOED report, that's where you're seeing the year by year reports come in and all of those different businesses and what they get awarded. So these are our general business abatements. And within here, you're going to see that one of the first things that we're contemplating in Section 1, Sub 2 is a change from shall to may. So right now, the GOED Board of Directors and the GOED office has to absolutely approve every single project that comes through. And it's not so much that the notion that they have to approve the board that I want to contemplate. But it's the idea of a rubber stamp board or a rubber stamp director that I've always taken issue with. I've always thought, we have this board that is at the head of that board is the governor. We've got our lieutenant governor on the board. We've got this really great Governor's Office of Economic Development board who looks at these packages. And I've always thought it makes sense and it would be meaningful to give them a little bit more discretion as they contemplate these packages, so that they're not simply a rubber stamp board. And so that's why I changed the shall to the may. The next piece on page 4, the next change you're going to see is the concept around 10% rebate that the entity receiving the abatement would pay annually to the state controller for deposit into the account for affordable housing. And so this is where you see that piece introduced in this bill, and then you'll see it in the other abatement chapters as well. The next piece on page 6, still in section 1, bottom of page 6, and this is the policy proposal for the deliberation of Medicaid, so that when an applicant is looking for an expansion of their abatement, so they've finished 2 years of a sales tax abatement, they're coming back and they're asking for another 2-year sales tax abatement. That's the first one to expire. The state could look back and say, let's just take a look at their history with Medicaid and make sure that this is still the best deal for us in terms of what it costs us on the other end for Medicaid. The next change is still keeping in line with the housing concept on the bottom of page 8. which is that the entity that is receiving the abatement would make that percentage payment to the Affordable Housing Trust Fund for as long as their abatement lasts, or if they cease operation. So obviously, if they thought they were going to make it 10 years and they only make it 5, they don't have to pay in year 6 if they cease as an entity, but also that if they fail to pay it, that they realize that they're not upholding their abatement agreement with GoEd. Section 2 is actually one that I'll tell you that will be it not in there, like out. It was a section I was hoping that there could be more movement on. This is abatement specific to the Nevada system of higher education. It's been in place since I believe 2013, but it's never been used in just a couple conversations with NSHE. It was a funky statute that never served them well. And so I thought maybe we might have the brain power during this session to say, can we kind of finally make this work, especially for as much as research oriented and research growth as NSHE is focused on right now? Could we make this a more meaningful statute? But we just haven't got there yet. So if someone else down the road has brain power to work on this, I think that, the intent is good. It could be beneficial for the state and beneficial for NSHE, but it's just a statute that doesn't seem to work well for right now. So we're going to leave it alone as it is. Section 3, NRS 360.753. So these are the abatements specific to aircrafts. And you see, once again, the language here about the 10% for housing that would be rebated to the controller for the account for affordable housing, and you see that on page 15. You also see, once again, here that concept around the Medicaid look back for the expansion, before an expansion abatement is approved. Section 4. This is our language on data centers and our data center abatements. They work differently than our general business abatements. That you can see here that the concept, once again, on page 19 about the 10% rebate for the account for affordable housing is there. And then on page 21, you're going to see, once again, that consideration for the impact on Medicaid before you make an expansion abatement. Next, you're going to go to section 5, and this is just carrying through the shall to the may. Section 5 and 6 are ones that it could be very exciting if we use, although I don't know if we're going to use them again really anytime soon. Section 5 is for that $1 billion investment, and section 6 is for that 3.5 capital expenditure investment. And tax credits in there as well. So these were statutes, obviously, that were kind of set up by a special session. A legislature contemplated these, for weeks aggregate, but week at a time. And so it just makes sense that, as opposed to having them live there, once again, just giving the ability to that board to have more deliberative thought on those types of investments. Section 7 is specific to your data centers. You're going to see that the red stricken language is just conforming language. So one thing that happened in this bill that I did not intend, and so the one piece that I do want to make sure that I put on the record is that this is, I believe, shortening the length of time on the property taxes for data centers, just from 1 to 10 years versus 10 to 20 years. And this was unintentional, just because after so many conversations on the data centers and how the data centers work, and we do have a lot of stiff composition with Arizona and data centers. So this piece didn't, once I saw it and read it, didn't make as much sense. So the intent here was not to shorten years on on this particular piece. The next piece, Section 8, this is referring to the modified business tax specifically. So this is where modified business tax can be up to 4 years versus just a static 4 years. But really getting back to that concept of if we need to work on how that right sizing language works a little bit more, that this would be the start of the conversation on that right sizing. The next on Section 9, this is where you see the language around the intent to be purposeful in thinking about small business, and small business being defined by under $4 million in gross revenue, and having them think about how some of these statutes might work well for small business. Next is Section 11, which is conforming changes. Section 12, actually, the 12, 13, 14, and 15 all deal with historically underutilized business zones, redevelopment areas, and our community development block grants. This is another one where these statutes I got caught up in my conceptual drafting, but did not intend for them to play out in here on the shall to the may, just because these are different kind of creatures, so it doesn't make sense to have the shall to the may there. So I think that is everything. I will say this, I'm appreciative of everyone who's had conversations with me on this bill. Before I open up to take questions on the bill, you know, you can always say your majority leader doesn't pull rank and pull favors for herself, because I got the very last personal BDR introduction, and this dropped, it came out just a couple of days ago. And so it's been such a quick turnaround time to connect with people and talk with people. And so I just appreciate everyone who's been willing to hear out the concepts and spend a little bit time with me on these policy conversations. And with that being said, Madam Chair, I am open for questions.
Thank you. I do have Mr. Roberts, but before that, I have a couple of questions. So going back to the conversation about property tax, and that maybe it won't be as long because, or we'll cut that down because people, the companies aren't building. I'm just wondering, do we know, was there an idea when it was set up because we wanted the companies to come in and build, or was that just fortuitous that it was the 10 years?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, for the question. So you're saying why in statute for the general business abatements is the abatement of a static 10 years?
Right, for the property tax.
If you know. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman, for the question. I sat through all of those meetings. I was a freshman the year that we set up this committee, and so many conversations on this. And so the idea was, so in these general economic incentives, they require, depending on the size of county that you live in, either a $1 million investment not later than 2 years after the abatement becomes effective in capital assets, or if you're in a smaller county with a smaller population, $2,000 investment not later than 2 years after the effective abatement date and capital assets. So the idea was we were really focusing on that capital asset investment. So moving in and moving companies here. So they're building, right? We wanted construction jobs, and then we wanted long-term employment jobs. And so there was a really heavy focus on build. But as you look at the abatements and you look at what companies are coming in with, if you let's take for example, the 2018 fiscal year abatements. So that's in the GOED report on page 22. You can see that some of them are just hitting that threshold on capital. You have big swings in capital investment, right? You have some companies that are doing $20 million in capital investment, then you have some companies that are doing just one. So you have quite a range there. You've got some, I think the biggest one in that year was $36 million. And so you've got such a big range in capital investment that I think the idea at the time was, let's just plan it on the high end, and then figure it out from there. I don't want to say figure it out from there, but the idea was plan it on the high end, assuming that we would have almost all of them would be those, big, heavy capital investments. We're hopeful at least of that.
Thank you. And then I do have a question about the Medicaid report, which I don't know if you have an answer, but it's the on page 6 is the top 10 employers for dependents on Medicaid. And I mean, besides the fact that, you can see this Clark County School District in the state of Nevada there. There, interestingly, so Tesla, Sutherland Global Services, Peppermill, Aria were in the top 10 previous years, but they've moved out. Do we know why those companies were able to move out of the top 10? And is that anything having to do with any of our programs at the state level?
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. No, I don't know that. This report changes from year to year. You're probably going to hear some people make some comments on the report. There are a couple of qualifiers on this report, although it is, they talk to you about the process of how they work the report, and those in technical report, that's on technical notes and page 4. And so you can see kind of how they technically go through it. And they do a data check, and then they also, recheck on their number of dependents, and look at the corresponding case IDs. So they do a couple of different checks. So the numbers are pretty good numbers, but they do tell us that some of these people might have more than one job. So that's one thing we want to hold in our head. Now, we don't want to assume that every single employee who is employed here has more than one job, but we do know that there's a little margin of error because some of these employees might be working 2 jobs. They might be working at 2 big box chain stores, or they might be working in a warehouse, and then have another job as well. So we do know that that is one consideration for the report. But as far as the training, it's just we asked, Medicaid to look at the numbers and give us the numbers, and then we get what we get. I do want to address the state of Nevada being in this report, because obviously being legislators, we have a responsibility to acknowledge that. And we have, and actually the report that was first generated in 2019 tells us a lot. It actually told us specifically what employee groups were on Medicaid. And so we have the ability to kind of course correct. We know that we are, not everyone in agreement on this committee might be in agreement on allowing the state to collectively bargain, but I know I supported it really wholeheartedly, because I know that ability for them to negotiate is going to help bring up the bottom. Now that we have specifically identified the employment types that tend to show up here. So we have a way to course correct, and we ought to, right? Like, we need to be the first ones to say that when we play a role in this economy as an employer too. I think the difference between that statement and then looking at the GOED stuff is that we're not a private entity looking for an ability to have our taxes abated for a set number of years.
Thank you. I have a question from Assemblyman Roberts.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And first of all, probably the best presentation that I've had. I can't believe you put it together in 2 days. I wish you were around when I did my master's program. I crammed a lot, but fantastic. You put a lot of thought into this, and I bet you know the answers off the top of your head to my questions. And it's kind of 2 into 1. So how do you think the current economic development package that we have under the current system compares to other states? And then the follow-up would be, you think that this would have any negative impact on our ability to compete with other states.
I appreciate that question to Assemblyman Roberts from through Chair Cohen. I think that there's nothing about this that states that we don't have a strong commitment to economic development. I think that we have robust laws. I think that we have an inherently tax-friendly environment here in Nevada. We have quite a few taxes and that other states don't pay. We don't have a state income tax, which we can't say about all of our neighbors. And then if you look to our neighbor to our south, because we talk so much about being competitive with Arizona, but Arizona's tax system is you have different tax rates by zip code because their local entities can tax and have different tax rates. So in previous sessions where we've looked at that, in Nevada, it's really easy to figure out what your tax rate is and what you're going to be assessed because we don't allow our local governments to tax at different rates. And so I've always said that when you go to Arizona, it's hard because they are competing against zip code. They have cities and competing against each other. So that's been hard. One of the things that Mr. Brown has done as the director of the Governor's Office of Economic Development that I think is wonderful is actually reached out and done a look at Nevada and Nevada's abatements to help us understand where we fall. And we've got a good system. And also to try to minimize the amount of competition we have with states around us by having more conversations to make sure we're not playing race to the bottom. I don't think anything about this inherently ties anyone's hands. I think the concept of trying to right-size abatements and knowing that this is would be kind of the starting point on how we could think about right-sizing them, I think helps business in a way. I think that if they say, look, and a little bit more help on MBT is going to be meaningful to me because of the type of business I am versus property tax, a little less property tax, then that board would have the ability to talk about that. The director would have the ability to talk about that. But I don't think there's anything else about this that would inherently dissuade anyone from thinking that we are anything less than thinking 100% all the time about our economic recovery.
Thank you very much for the answers. Thank you, Madam Chair, for the questions. And again, a great presentation.
Assemblyman Yeager.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. Thank you, Majority Leader. I really appreciate the materials you put together. I'm looking forward to diving into those in a little bit more detail, but I, like you, appreciate having that in writing. A nice thing to look at on the plane ride back to Las Vegas. So here is my question. In a few sections of the bill, we have this language that the director of the Office of Economic Development is going to consider essentially the Medicaid portion, how many of the employees of the business are on Medicaid and what the cost is to the state. And so I just wondered if you had a vision of what that analysis would look like for the Office of Economic Development. Obviously, we have the chart that you gave us that has the numbers of employees and the cost, but do you envision that they would have a more in-depth discussion about those numbers with the employer, or just how do you see that playing out in your mind if we actually enacted this and they have to look at that as a factor?
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So the good news is that, like I said, a majority of the employers who get abatements are actually paying good wages, because that is one of the tenets, absolutely one of the tenets that we stood up the Governor's Economic Development Office on was you got to pay 100% of the state average wage. And then you have to tell us what that average wage is going to be. But where the trend seems to be is that companies that have more than 500 employees on Medicaid are the ones where we see really heavy Medicaid cost incurred to the state. There are a couple with thousands on Medicaid. And so those to me seem the most problematic because they look to cost us so much in Medicaid. If you look at the number one company that was listed in this year, they were also in the top 10 for last year. And the 2021 cost to Medicaid was just over $21 million. The 2019 cost to Medicaid was just over, was $6.5 million. So from the 2019 to the 2021, it's about just over $27.8 million is the cost to the state from one company. And so I think that should give us pause. I think that should make us really deliberate whether or not we would want to say, is it in our best interest to consider an expansion abatement? Does that $27 million in cost to the state of Medicaid, is that beneficial to us considering the capital expenditures and the number of employees that are going to come in? I think at that point, it's a pretty hard case to make. I didn't want to set a fixed number just because, like I said, we've got a smart board. We've got a board, that I think that our governor pays attention a lot to these applications. I know that more than ever, we've had so much careful consideration and thought about how we want to grow these states as we look at these applications. So the goal would be is we would see that conversation reflected in the minutes of the board, I believe, ultimately. But I also think that it would serve a little bit as a deterrent too, because if you have a company that wants to come to the state and they look at, are we offering health insurance to our employees? How much, are we making sure that we're being the best employer we can? And in terms of healthcare coverage for employees, they can kind of look at themselves and do some soul searching and say, Nevada has that Medicaid policy, and wow, we know with the wages we pay that we've got a lot of employees on Medicaid, and maybe this doesn't make sense for us.
Thank you so much.
Question from Assemblywoman Kasama, and then O'Neill.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair, and thank you so much. This is just a beautiful presentation, and I love the book. It helps my eyes. Thank you. It's just great to be able to go through that and read that. So I just had a couple questions. So when GOED is looking at the abatements, because I didn't see mention of that, are they looking at the total economic output that the company brings into the state of Nevada through all kinds of different areas, not only employment, but sales of their products? So when we're looking at adding, let's say, Medicaid to the picture as a consideration for their abatements, they're also looking at the total revenue package of what they'll bring to the state, and then we're going to have all these different factors to see which one we like more than the other. Is that correct?
Actually, Assemblywoman Kasama through Chair Cohen.
Please go direct.
Thank you so much. Because we have the 2-year audit process and we have the sales tax abatement at 2 years, we actually have the ability. It doesn't necessarily have to be a guessing game by the Governor's Office of Economic Development, right? So if a company is coming and asking for an extension of their abatement, so their first term of the abatement is ending. So if it's sales tax, it's 2 years. If it's modified business tax, it's 4 on the general abatements. I'll just talk about the general abatements right now. So when that first one ends, they typically come back to ask for an expansion. And so what the board can do is say, let's look at the audit. And first of all, did the company meet they do this already. Did the company meet the investments at that 2-year audit? And if not, they're going to ask for the taxpayer to pay the taxes that were abated. But if they look good on the audit, which you see a number of these companies do, but there's a handful of examples like 5 or 10 where the audit isn't catching the consideration for Medicaid. And that's what I'm trying to capture here, is that they have the audit that they're looking at, as well as having this consideration for Medicaid on the expansion abatements. So on the initial abatement that comes in, the way those work is those are coming in through the regional development authorities, and every abatement and statute has certain metrics they have to meet. So they've got requirements on their period of operation, they've got requirements on their wages, they've got requirements on capital investment and requirements on jobs, and those by the audits seem to be working very well. They do have a requirement for healthcare. Hypothetically, at the beginning of the conversation with the regional development authorities, and then as it gets to GoEd, when their application is submitted to GoEd, they're supposed to be the healthcare benefits they're offered to the employees of the state. So we're at the front end, that's what we want and that we're encouraging. I'm just saying we should have a back way to actually true that up before we do an expansion abatement.
So the Medicaid consideration would come with the second extension.
Yeah, with the expansion abatement. Yes.
Okay, and then would any of this be retroactive, or it just starts for people that are now asking for the second extension?
Thank you. It's would be going forward, and so it would be for the abatements that are signed after the effective date and going forward. So we wouldn't see this. For the expansions too. So if they are after the effective date is if when they're applying for their first expansion abatement, then it would apply there. So it would be after the effective date whenever they would be applying for their expansion abatement.
Great, thank you. Sarah, may I have another question?
Please go ahead.
So the other question I have is, and I there's a lot of just great things here. Did you speak with the GoEd office, economic development? Would we possibly lose? I know we have a lot of great things going on in the state, and I think we all feel that way. But let's say, for example, that they have to pay at 10% for affordable housing now. Could we possibly lose some good businesses that we would want here? Was there any discussion about that? Did you visit with the the office to just kind of get their feel of could that be a stumbling block, or is it small enough that's not, or just any?
I'll be honest, Assemblywoman Kasama. I think it depends on where you are regionally, because economic development is so based by region. You can see that it's based by the type of package you can get and the type of level of investment that you have to have is depending on how the size of the county that you're in. And so different regions are situated in different places. And so if you're asking the question, how would this be received? I would say it's probably going to be received in different parts of the state. My hope would be, and I know that as a resident up in Northern Nevada, anything that tells me that we're doing something to address affordable housing is going to be a good thing. And these reports are saying now Nevada is less competitive in economic development growth because of affordable housing. It's a hindrance to us now. It's a problem. Anyone who cares about this issue read this report and was not happy about what was read when the Milliken report came out. This is a stand on our toes, pay attention. We have to consider a policy change kind of a moment for us, because when you talk about economic development, you talk about these reports, they're a signal to the rest of the world about, the conversation starters. Are we going to look at Reno? And we get on or off people's list depending on now housing affordability.
No, I've read the report.
We know that we're on or off the list depending on education. That's one of the reasons why we stood this up. But I would say that that it's reasonable to say that in other areas, will it ring as true? I believe that we have, issues with affordable housing all throughout the state. I think you've heard that argument made in lots of different venues and lots of different committees, but do some areas feel more of the pinch? Would there be more of an urgency to consider this in some regions than others? Yeah.
No, great answer on that. Thank you so much.
Assemblywoman Anderson.
Thank you, Chair Cohen. Thank you for the presentation and the binder and all the information, Assemblymember Benitez Thompson. Two questions for you. The first is from page, first a comment on for page 4 with the having the money being transferred to the affordable housing. It would be great if we could actually start that for those individuals or for those companies that already have the abatements, but I don't believe that's a possibility, but wouldn't it be great if it was? But then my question really is from page 11, my first one, has to do with the information that is being removed. for section 2H1 as well as 2 and then 3. So the businesses will not need to employ the 15 or more full-time employees for the duration of the abatement. Is that correct, or did I misunderstand that portion?
Thank you so much for the question, Assemblywoman Anderson. And I know I had a lot of information, so I was probably moving too fast, and my apologies for that. But section 2 is one that was in there with the hopes that we could see if we can make this work better. It's specific to businesses that choose to make investment in NSHE and in the NSHE system. So that's what this was looking at and contemplating, but it's not soup yet. So it's nothing that we need to deliberate much further.
Thank you for that clarification. That helps me out a ton. And then my other question, if I may ask a second question, Chair Cohen.
Go ahead.
Thank you. On page 30, the language that is being brought forward regarding the beginning of the Office of Economic Development for small business development, is this similar to, I think there's another bill that you are also bringing forward, AB 184, which is with the Lieutenant Governor having a small business advisory, for lack of a better term, a help, or is this different, and I was just making those connections on my own.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So the intent is that it would be distinctly different. So in sponsoring that bill, we need an advocate. We have right now within, it's hard to keep track of all the programs, but within Business of Industry, they do just an amazing job. Director Reynolds over there and his group they do some small business advocacy. They do small business roundtables. They have financing and planning groups that are a connection to the Small Business Administration and loans. There are folks that we've had handling the new market tax credits, awesome program that Senator Neal got state money for to extend. So they are wonderful in doing all that. And then with the lieutenant governors, as you read the language, it's very much about helping small business swim through dealing with regulations, dealing with roadblocks, dealing with present barriers. The idea and the concept behind this was that we would have someone who is thinking about state skin in the game in a specific way that is focused around setting up a pilot program for abatements for small business. And so, we learned a lot when we did the PETS grant program over the summer, and one of the first bills we passed at the beginning of session. We learned a lot, and the state was interacting with small business in a way that we never had before, quite frankly. Now, I think that during the next 2 years, it'd be important to say, when we give when we give a 2-year sales tax abatement to, a highly profitable company that moves to the state, it's meaningful. They will tell us it's meaningful. They'll tell us it helps. But what a small, you take a concept of $500,000 in laudable abatements, and you allow a program to go forward to help out with sales tax and try a pilot program, the specific amounts of specific details, all for one person who's thinking, hypercognitively about their needs. And these our statutes don't contemplate them at all. These are all about people who can make the $1 million CapEx investment, or make, when you get to aircrafts and data centers, they go up even more. So the idea would be, could we look for a way to have something that is meaningful, and that doesn't exist out there right now. We have lots of help for pass-through for federal programs, but the state skin in the game is missing.
Thank you. That helps me out a lot. Thanks.
All right. Do we have any other questions? Okay. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry, Assemblyman O'Neill. It is just one of those days.
Oh, no problem. If I may, Madam Chair. Majority Leader, first and foremost, ditto what everybody said. Amazing presentation. My question is in regards to the 10% going to the housing, Affordable Housing Authority. Is that correct? And I know I'm just going to give an example because everybody's been hearing about it in the news. There's some projects in northern Nevada that are looking to develop. Is there any safeguards? Because I think your intent is for the affordable housing to be where these new developments go. But is there any safeguards in place to ensure that this 10% goes towards housing affordability, in this example, in northern Nevada rather than in southern Nevada?
Thank you so much for the question. So I do think that the one piece that it's probably an incomplete sentence in the bill, and so I appreciate you acknowledging that, Assemblyman Hafen, would be that you would want that 10% to go back to the county where the abatement is approved. And so you have within the Division of Housing and the Affordable Trust Fund, you already have a system set up that works down to the local level. And so the idea would be that percentage would stay in the county where the project is being approved. Or if there is, we would probably also say no master plan for a build out in that county, that it could go to contiguous county.
Okay, thank you. I thought that was the legislative intent. I just thought we should get it on the record. Thank you, and thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, Assemblyman O'Neill, sorry, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. And I've got a right on. The presentation was amazing. The information on how some of these agencies are still on their employees on the Medicaid is upsetting to me. And so much of this presentation actually stimulates more conversation. So, Madam Vice Chair, I've got to give you huge kudos. But in most of my questions I was going to ask, you've already addressed, because, besides just affordable housing, we've also got the issues with our education, both in the lower grades and all the way up through our entry programs, or entry, which agencies or companies often talk about why they won't come here, because we don't have the educated workforce. You've also mentioned about some of the 85% of the land roughly is owned by the Fed, so we have limited land to attract them with. And I guess that's what I want to get to is very quickly, it's so competitive between the states to attract businesses, and businesses like stability. They want to know exactly what it's going to be every day and don't like to hear, well, it may change, and it scares them all. So in short, do you think some of your this proposals that you're presenting could hinder any of our states' attractiveness to future businesses, considering all the other issues that we have to compete and address with?
Appreciate the question, Mr. Neal. I think it's Assemblyman O'Neill, and I think it's a really fair one, and I think it's a brave one to ask too, because I don't think anyone sat here drafting legislation thinking, I know what I want to do is scare off anyone who's interested in Nevada. I think that would be an unfair thing to say about anyone in this building. I think we are all trying to row in the same direction. I think we all are open and honest about what the needs are. We know that there are regions of the state that are hurting more than others. And so that is absolutely not the intent. The intent was absolutely to start the conversation about right sizing abatements and to see if there was a better way to, still within parameters, allow the director and the board to better allocate some of these abatements. The piece with housing, like I said, I would hope that wouldn't deter anyone, because I think one of the biggest concerns is, can I house my workforce? And ultimately, if you want to bring a company to certain parts of the state with 1,000 employees, there are parts of the state that are at occupancy. We just don't have the room to house them. And so, but there are other places where it makes a lot of sense. And so the goal is to not in any way to hinder economic development and growth. But I will say that in the past, business has been resilient. Nevada has been resilient. The businesses that locate here, you know, they're Nevadans. They've got some Nevadans, and if they're not Nevadans when they come here, we make them Nevadans. And so they get tough and they can weather things, right? And so we have made changes to these statutes over the years. We have almost every session we make a little bit of change to the statute, and it has not stopped us from having applications come in. It has not stopped us from approving applications. And so this concern that the sky will fall and everything will dry up and go away, I don't think that's true. I think it might be more fair to say, could we think about certain pieces of this bill and see if they ring true in a way that the bill sponsor would hope? I think that that's a fair statement to say. But when we leave this meeting, there will be unanimous agreement that I can put together a binder really well.
You can put together a heck of a binder. Madam Chair, may I ask just one more question?
Please go ahead.
Thank you. Ms. Benitez-Thompson, or Assemblywoman Benitez-Thompson, do you think, or what would happen if the affordable housing balances out? We actually get to a point where we built down here in Carson City, we're putting together huge complexes, apartments, townhomes, etc. Where this money going as in the current plan into affordable housing, is it flexible enough that we could put it to something else like infrastructure or roads? That
I appreciate that.
Bigger challenges too.
I don't know that I think I would leave that to future legislators and legislatures to deliberate. I think that right now we know what the need is, but if times change and things change, anyone at any time can come in and change this, change the language and say, is there another need? Or if mission accomplished and we no longer have a need for affordable housing, then I'll show up and say you can take that out, because there's just we finally hit it. We finally did it with affordable housing in our neighborhood. I'll be so happy when that day comes. I think we're far off from it. I think we're far off from getting there at this point. But if we cross that line, then take it off. I've always been one that I don't think the government doesn't need to collect something that we don't have to. So if the need goes away, it can go away.
I appreciate the answers, and I appreciate the time allowed to me, Chair. Thank you.
Welcome. Okay, last call for questions. Seeing none. And Vice Chair, I don't believe you have anyone on the Zoom testifying with you. Let me know if that's incorrect. So I think we will go to support on the phones.
To testify in support on Assembly Bill 449, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to testify in support on Assembly Bill 449, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. We will begin with the first caller, 116. Please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You'll have 2 minutes and may begin now.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Alexis Motorex, Alexis Motarex, with the Nevada Chapter Associated General Contractors, representing the commercial construction industry in Northern Nevada. AGC is here in support of AB 449, particularly as it relates to the Affordable Housing Fund. We would like to thank Assemblywoman Benitez-Thompson for thinking outside of the box to help solve the affordable housing crisis. This is an elegant solution that will not increase the cost of construction, jeopardize jobs, or increase the cost of housing, as other proposals over the years have threatened to do. It is not the builders and developers who are creating the demand. They are simply responding to it. It is new and expanding businesses that are creating the demand, and it's time for them to contribute to the housing crisis they have helped create. In December, GOED awarded over $29 million in abatements to 11 companies. Last week, they approved another 9 companies to receive $4.7 million in abatements. Of those 20 companies, 10 are paying an average wage at or below the housing wage as determined by the Nevada Housing Coalition of approximately $29 an hour, and 5 are paying just a few cents above. If this bill had been in place just for the last 2 rounds of abatements, we would already have over $3 million in the Affordable Housing Fund. Again, we'd like to thank Assemblywoman Benitez Thompson for this innovative approach to solving one of the largest problems facing Nevadans.
Next person in support, please.
Will the caller with the last 3 digits, 044, please slowly state and spell your name for the record? You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Good evening, esteemed chairwoman and members. My name is Dr. Tiffany Tyler Garner, Tiffany Tyler Garner, and I am calling in support of this important legislation. And I come to that support from 2 vantage points. One, in my role at the Children's Advocacy Alliance, where our focus is improving conditions for children in the areas of health and economic well-being, but also as a former ad hoc member of the GO-ED board. And so from that perspective, I am encouraged by this legislation and ask us to consider how long we can continue to subsidize the shortcomings of job quality in our state, particularly as we look at the need to make further investments in mental health, education, and housing affordability. As you review the report commissioned and issued by the Department of Health and Human Services in January of this year, consider what the opportunities would be if we were not subsidizing to the tune of over $700 million. Employers who may be not only have demonstrated some profitability over the course of this past biennium, if we consider who the top employer is on the list, but also what would the opportunities be if, as a part of the abatement process, we were intentionally requiring some investment in the employees who work and serve in those communities. And so I come to it in support saying thank you and asking you to consider how long we can sustain subsidizing things like health care costs as we grapple with our inability to get to adequate education funding or housing affordability. And as a part of that, do we ever want to be known as a part of the equation for really fostering the working poor as housing costs go up, wages go down, while we waive taxes and pay for health care costs that maybe employers could be empowered to cover. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you. Next person in support.
Will the caller with the last 3 digits, 646, please slowly state and spell your name for the record? You will have 2 minutes and may begin now.
Good afternoon, Chair Cohen and committee members. My name is Sequila, Sequila, Anchortok, Angkratok. I'm a representative from Human Services Network calling to voice our strong support of AB 449 on behalf of our many human service providers. Our state desperately needs increased sources of revenue to support the diverse everyday needs of all Nevadans, but particularly those who are deeply in need of fundamental mental health, housing, food assistance, and other social safety net services. As we continue to encounter challenging times of economic downturn and widespread pandemic, we all, as a community, citizens, institutions, and companies alike, must equitably participate in creating and maintaining this revenue to encourage mutual economic development. This means all parties, including companies and corporations, must be held accountable to contribute their fair share. AB 449 establishes measures essential to increasing state revenue and consequently quality of life for all Nevadans by requiring much-needed company tax abatement, transparency, and restrictions. Provisions in AB 449 will increase the amount of employed persons provided direct healthcare benefits from companies, a right all employees should be provided, while opening up more Medicaid opportunities for those who are most in need. We are also excited with this that this bill will, through stated provisions, contribute 10% funding from abatements to directly and positively affect those in need of critical affordable housing. If we want to continue creating a prosperous, fair, and compassionate Nevada, we must all be willing to pay for it. Thank you all for allowing us to share, and special thanks to Vice Chair Teresa Benitez Torres for presenting this bill.
Thank you. Next person in support, please.
One moment. Will the caller with the last three digits, 130, please slowly state and spell your name for the record? You'll have 2 minutes and may begin now.
Good evening, Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Christine Saunders. That's CHRISTINESAUNDERS. I'm the Policy Director with the Progressive Leadership Alliance of Nevada, here in support of Assembly Bill 449. We believe that we can build and sustain a Nevada that meets the needs of all Nevadans and ensures all residents, regardless of zip code, can thrive in dignity. The Nevadans have long suffered from underfunded education and health care. The pandemic has not only exposed the inadequacy of our public funding to meet the basic needs of hardworking Nevadans, it also necessitated cuts to the services vulnerable Nevadans need most. We can no longer afford to prioritize corporations and their profits over Nevadans and the services the state provides. AB 449 will help ensure that the businesses who move to the state are actually making real investments, providing good jobs, and supporting the development of needed affordable housing with our growing population, rather than be giveaways to corporations who take advantage of the state's social services. We urge your support of this legislation. Thank you.
Next person in support, please.
Will the caller with the last three digits, 577, please slowly state and spell your name for the record? You will have 2 minutes and may begin now.
Good evening, Chris Daly, DALY, Nevada State Education Association, the voice of Nevada educators for over 120 years. NSEA is also in support of AB 449. I just want to address the provisions related to Medicaid briefly. If you've perused your binder, perhaps you've noticed that the Clark County School District, unfortunately, is one of the top employers in terms of employees who are on Medicaid. A lot of these are our members that we represent. We work for better wages and for benefits like health care. Unfortunately, an employer like the Clark County School District doesn't have the resources to provide that. That's part of the reason why we fight for more funding for public education. We want money in classrooms, and we want to make sure that the educators that serve students also have a living wage and are able to live with dignity. So when we hear that employers are receiving abatements or tax loopholes or giveaways and have their employees with jobs, that they've created in part with these abatements that are on Medicaid, taking state dollars and taking precious resources away from other services that are needed in the state, whether that be others who require health care or the public education system, that really hurts. So we appreciate the Majority Leader, Benitez Thompson, for bringing this bill and add our name in support. Thank you.
Next person in support, please.
If you have recently called and would like to testify in support on Assembly Bill 449, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. If you would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 449, please press *9 to take your place in the queue. Will the caller with the last three digits, 904, please slowly state and spell your name for the record? You have 2 minutes and may begin now.
Good afternoon, Chair Cohen and members of the committee. My name is Alex Camberos, and today I'm speaking on behalf of Battleborn Progress in support of AB 449. Safe and secure housing is central to wellness and the opportunity for so many Nevadans. It makes a difference to be able to provide themselves and their family with food, health care, a strong education, and reliable transportation. Nevada has fewer affordable units for extremely low-income people than any other state in the country, a deficit of over 80,000 affordable units, for Nevadans below 30% of the area median income and a total deficit of over 100,000 affordable units needed for Nevadans below 50% of the area median income, which is why we believe that 10% of that tax abatement provided by AB 449 would be productive and an efficient solution to raising funding for affordable housing. It would both preserve current housing and create new housing. At 10% over the next 3 years, 600 more units could be built. Combined with other sources of funding, Nevada could make real progress in its low-income residents, in housing its low-income residents, and workforce affordability. Over the next 10 years, it could provide a predictable and consistent revenue stream for each tax abatement recipient. We thank Majority Leader Benitez Thompson for presenting this bill and providing an innovative solution to improve the availability of affordable housing throughout Nevada. Thank you to the members of the committee for their consideration, and we strongly urge your support for AB 449. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Camberos. Can you please state and respell your name so that we've got it for the committee secretary?
Yes, ma'am. Alex Camberos for the record. ALEXCAM as in Mary, B as in boy, ER as in Roy, OS. Thank you.
Thank you. And next person in support, please.
Will the caller with the last 3 digits, 199, please slowly state and spell your name for the record? You'll have 2 minutes and may begin now.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Tess Opferman. That's spelled OPFERMAN, speaking on behalf of the Nevada Women's Lobby. Companies continue to move to Nevada, and for good reason, one of which are significant tax abatements to draw the company here. But what if these companies pay very low wages and don't cover benefits? Residents move to Nevada and then can't afford housing. AB 449 is a logical solution that ensures companies who have been given generous tax abatements are still giving appropriate funds back to our state. Large companies need to be held accountable to ensure our Nevada residents, those who have been here for generations and those who are new to our state, have affordable and stable housing and are given medical coverage. We want businesses to come here and we want our state to grow and prosper. But at what cost? Let's pass policy that brings businesses here but also ensures Nevadans get health care, make a living wage, and can afford to buy houses and continue to live in our state. The Nevada Women's Lobby asks you to push partisan lines aside in an effort to make smart, logical policy decisions that help all Nevadans. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you. Next person in support, please.
If you have recently joined this meeting and would like to testify in support of Assembly Bill 449, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. And Chair, it appears the line is open and working, but there are no more callers wishing to testify in support at this time.
Thank you. Can we have callers in opposition, please?
Yes, Chair. To testify in opposition to Assembly Bill 449, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to testify in opposition to Assembly Bill 449, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Will the caller with the last 3 digits, 836, please slowly state and spell your name for the record? You will have 2 minutes and may begin now.
Hi, Derek Armstrong, DEREKARMSTRONG. My name is Derek Armstrong. I'm the Director of Economic Development and Tourism for the City of Henderson. I had originally signed up to testify neutral, but listening to this is not in opposition to contributing to affordable housing and has supported several bills already this session. But I do think that there's several issues with this bill that could complicate economic development in the state. The first section, changing our incentives from a shall to a may, is going to cause many issues with certainty for businesses when we're attracting them and recruiting them, but then additionally the process for approval by going through a system of picking winners and losers. And I think that currently we have a system that's very mechanical and objective, and inserting a lot of that subjectiveness is going to cause a lot of issues when we're recruiting companies. When we're talking about Medicaid, my biggest complaint there is that we're not treating businesses fairly. We're only talking about businesses expanding within the state without having that same conversation with new businesses that are coming here and the amount of Medicaid employees that they have elsewhere. And then affordable housing. Assemblyman Hafen brought up one point that I didn't see in the bill, talking about the regionality, and making sure that where the business locates, the affordable housing dollars go to that community. So I appreciated that question. But also the process for collecting that hasn't really been addressed either. Is that a bill that comes from the state at the end of the year? Or is it the responsibility of the business to track that and then send a bill and then taxation audits it? So I think with that, it still needs to be vetted out as to that process and how that will work out. And additionally, the section that creates the Office of Small Business, there's so many offices of small business now that I just feel like it's muddying the waters and creating a lot of confusion. So understanding that there's several different
Mr.
options.
Armstrong, your 2 minutes are up. Can you please wrap it up?
Yeah, I'm just about done. I just want to make it easier for businesses to understand where to go, especially small businesses. So those are my points. Thank you for listening.
Anyone else in opposition, please?
Yes, Chair. Will the caller with the last three digits, 121, please slowly state and spell your name for the record? You will have 2 minutes and may begin now.
Good evening, Chair Cohen, members of the committee. My name is Jonas Peterson. That's JONASPETERSON. I'm the president and CEO with the Las Vegas Global Economic Alliance. Thanks for the opportunity to testify this evening on AB 449. As the Regional Development Authority for Southern Nevada, our mission at LVGA is to grow Southern Nevada's economy. We're your boots on the ground to help Southern Nevada's economy recover from the pandemic. With that mission in mind, we respectfully oppose AB 449. We believe the bill would make Nevada less competitive for new high-value jobs by decreasing the value and decreasing the predictability of tax abatements. Nevada's existing tax abatements have a proven track record of success and are necessary tools for our region to help companies add much-needed jobs. The level of competition among states for new jobs right now is very high. And compared to other states, our current incentives are minimal. And we do lose deals that we should win because our incentives are simply not competitive enough. With Southern Nevada's high unemployment, now is simply not the time to reduce any of our job creation tools. Instead, we should be sending out a clear message to prospective companies that we intend to, at a minimum, maintain our performance-based tax abatements. Thanks again, and I urge you to oppose AB 449.
Next person in opposition, please.
Yes. One moment. Will the caller with the last three digits, 165, please slowly state and spell your name for the record? You have 2 minutes and may begin now.
Good evening, Chair Cohen, Vice Chair Vitez Thompson, members of the committee, and thank you for the opportunity to be here today. Especially thank you, Vice Chair, for reaching out to us earlier this afternoon. For the record, my name is Glenn Christensen, GLENNCHRISTENSON. I've been a member of the Board of Directors of the LVGEA and its predecessor, the Nevada Development Authority, for over 20 years. I'm still its longest-serving chairman of the LVGEA. I'm here today in opposition to AB 449. To me, the only way to address poverty and other issues in our community is for people to obtain a good education, develop a marketable skill, and have some passion to improve one's life condition. To that end, since leaving my role as Chief Financial Officer of Station Casinos in 2007, I have focused my efforts on economic development and improving education system here in Southern Nevada. People often ask me, why isn't our economy more diversified? First, 35% of the businesses not coming to Southern Nevada aren't coming because our education system and workforce do not meet their needs. To me, this is the biggest issue. Second, we don't have the land available. Hats off to our congressional delegation for focusing on this matter. Third, we don't have a competitive incentive program to attract new businesses. AB 449 only adds to the erosion of the state's economic incentive program that's taken place over the last several years from the perspective of our potential clients. And finally, the state doesn't devote enough resources to this effort, and thus we're not competitive with many other states. The problem is that we could have had this exact same conversation 20 years ago. Southern Nevada's economic growth has been outstanding over that time period, but because our economy is not more diversified, we continue to leave ourselves open to economic disasters like those caused by the Great Recession and COVID-19. 2 economic disasters in 20 years should be incentive enough to meaningfully address our economic diversification challenges. I recognize some of you have reservations around incentives. That said, a common sense incentive program with strong safeguards for performance is an important tool to attract new businesses to our state. AB 449, as currently drafted, does not contribute to that goal, in my opinion.
I'm sorry, but your 2 minutes are up, so if you could please, thank you. Next person in opposition.
If you have recently joined the call and would like to testify in opposition to Assembly Bill 449, please press star 9 now and take your place in the queue. One moment, Chair. Will the caller with the last 3 digits, 020, please slowly state and spell your name. You have 2 minutes and may begin.
Thank you so much. Good evening, Chair Cohen and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Mary Beth Sewald, S-E-W-A-L-D. I'm the president and CEO of the Vegas Chamber. First and foremost, I would like to thank Assembly Majority Leader Benitez Thompson for taking the time to talk with our team this week about the proposed legislation. Those conversations were extremely productive, and we look forward to further dialogue. Having said that, the Vegas Chamber's concerns with AB 449 are that it will unintentionally hamper our recovery efforts as GOED and local regional development agencies work to bring new employers to our community. Our message to prospective employers who want to move to Southern Nevada is that Nevada is open for business and that we want them to relocate here. We want them to provide good paying jobs and careers to our residents. We need both small and large employers to succeed, especially with the competition that we face from other states. And I would echo my colleague Jonas Peterson at the LVGEA, who says we do lose deals. We absolutely do lose deals. Other states are actively working to attract new employers and industries to their states, even during the pandemic. Our state, Nevada, needs to do the exact same thing, and we have the tools to succeed to do that. The reality is that 2 things are against us: time and competition from other states. Those 2 things. That is why we really have to incentivize new businesses to come to Nevada, like most other states do, to compete, so we can rebuild and put Nevadans back to work and diversify our economy. On behalf of the Vegas Chamber, I appreciate your time and consideration today. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next person in opposition, please.
Will the caller with the last 3 digits, 388, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin now.
Good evening, Madam Chair, committee members. I am Sheldon Mudd, S-H-E-L-D-O-N, M-U-D-D. That's Mike Uniform Delta Delta. And I am the Executive Director of the Northeastern Nevada Regional Development Authority. On behalf of the NNRDA Board of Directors, I'm here today regarding various concerns associated with AB 449. Our first concerns reside with sections 1 through 4 and the 10% stipend that will be allocated to an affordable housing account. We agree that housing is an enormous issue within the state. However, we don't feel that this is the most efficient way to address it. The state of Nevada's incentive packages are at best on par with surrounding states. We fear that this proposed string that will be attached to these abatements could put us at a disadvantage to our neighboring states, our competitors. In section 9 through 11, we believe that these efforts are redundant and unwarranted. Between the Small Business Administration, Nevada Small Business Development Center, multiple nonprofits, and the various regional development authorities in the state, there are plenty of resources in Nevada that can provide useful and effective information at no cost to small businesses and prospective startups. And last, in section 12 of the bill, eliminating the GOED director's ability to approve projects within abatements valued at less than $250,000. In rural Nevada, we tend to see investments that pale in comparison to our urban counterparts. But in light of that, we can often offer speedy turnarounds on permitting and incentive approval. We fear that this change will eliminate a portion of that advantage. For these reasons, NNRDA finds itself opposing this bill and would ask that the committee would do the same. Thank you.
Next person in opposition, please.
For the caller with the last three digits, 153, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin now.
Good evening, Chair Cohen and members of the committee. My name is Lynn O'Mara. That's Lima, Yankee, November, Oscar, Mike, Alpha, Romeo, Alpha. And I represent Northern Nevada Development Authority, one of the state-designated regional development authorities. NNDA is opposed to Assembly Bill 449 for all of the reasons already expressed by our colleagues at LVGEA, NNRDA, and the Las Vegas Chamber. The diversification of Nevada's economy has been the direct result of Nevada's business incentives. They facilitate the diversification of Northern Nevada, which helped to mitigate its adverse economic impacts of the pandemic. Sadly, rural and Southern Nevada did not fare as well, and now those areas need the incentives more than ever to facilitate much-needed economic revitalization in order to spur recovery and build resistance. Without Nevada's existing business incentive formula, it will be difficult to attract the industries and businesses to meet Nevada's robust economic goals as laid out in Nevada's plan for recovery and resilience. And we are especially opposed because we do not believe that AB 449 will be productive and helpful for rural and Southern Nevada. Thank you.
Next person in opposition, please.
Chair, we do not have any other callers wishing to testify in opposition at this time.
Thank you. Then we will go to the phones in neutral, please.
If you would like to testify in neutral to Assembly Bill 449, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to testify in neutral on Assembly Bill 449, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. And will the caller with the last three digits, 088, please slowly state and spell your name for the record. You have 2 minutes and may begin now.
Good evening, Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Aaron West, AARON-WEST, and I'm the CEO of the Nevada Builders Alliance, representing over 1,000 construction-related companies in the state of Nevada. We are here in a neutral position today, obviously very supportive of economic development efforts and would hate to see those impacted, but at the same time, there are a lot of bad ideas for how to address some of our affordable housing needs that are being bantered around in the legislature, and we feel that connecting the affordable housing need to the companies that are driving that demand is not necessarily a bad thing. And so we would encourage continued dialogue on this matter so that maybe we can get to a point that our friends in the North and the South can agree on future direction for the state. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next person in neutral, please.
Chair, the public line is open and working. However, we do not have any other callers wishing to testify in neutral at this time.
Thank you. I don't believe we have anyone in neutral on the Zoom, but let me just double check. Okay, seeing none. Vice Chair, would you like to make some closing remarks?
Oh, no, it's late and you folks have heard me out and I appreciate everyone's time and I appreciate everyone's consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. With that, I will bring the hearing on Assembly Bill 449 to a close, and we will go to public comment. Please note public comment may be limited in time. Do we have anyone on the phones for public comment?
If you would like to give public comment, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Again, if you would like to provide public comment, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, the public line is open and working. However, at this time, we do not have any callers wishing to give public comment.
Thank you for that. Do we have anything from the members? Okay, seeing none, as far as tomorrow, we will be having a work session, so keep your eyes open, and we'll go ahead and post that as soon as we're able. So thanks, everyone, and have a good night.